Chapter 32:17. This, Elder Hua couldn't help but look at the Devil Hall Master. If the Devil Hall Master wasn't here, with his fondness for Qin Feiyang and frenzy, he would definitely agree without hesitation. Moreover, although the Devil Hall had countless disciples, and there was no lack of monstrous geniuses, no one had comprehended the time law. Therefore, when Fire Lotus comprehended the time law, he was very happy. He had finally met a decent junior. But there was no other way. With the Hall Master present, he had to ask for his opinion. What do you want to do? Can I stop you? The Devil Hall Master shook his head and laughed. Elder Hua laughed and looked at Fire Lotus. All right, this old man will stay and guide you. But you have to be more serious. If you're distracted, this old man will leave immediately. That's for sure. Fire Lotus was overjoyed. Elder Hua nodded his head in satisfaction. He looked at the Devil Hall Master and said, then leave the exchange to Chu Yun. All right. The Demon Hall Master smiled. He then looked at Huo Lian and said, send me out. Senior, take care. Fire Lotus bowed respectfully and waved her hand. The Devil Hall Master immediately disappeared in front of the three of them. Isn't the Black Tortoise world an independent world? Qin Feiyang is the master of the Black Tortoise world. How can you control the Black Tortoise world's rule power? Elder Hua looked at Fire Lotus in surprise. This junior has the authority to control everything. Fire Lotus smiled. So that's how it is. Elder Hua nodded his head in realization. To actually give such an important authority to this little girl, that meant that Qin Feiyang trusted her a lot. What's your name? Elder Hua asked. Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus replied honestly. Fire Lotus. Elder Hua glanced at the Fire Lotus mark on Huo Lian's forehead and said with a smile, we are indeed fated. You're called Huo Lian, and others call me Old Man Hua. Maybe we were even family in our previous lives. Fire Lotus laughed dryly. She didn't know how to reply. She was obviously trying to get close to him. Elder Hua smiled and said, all right, let's not talk too much. Let's find a place where no one will disturb us. Aren't you going to eat first? The mermaid princess quickly asked. Fire Lotus said in a low voice, how can I be in the mood to eat now? You can slowly eat by yourself. After he finished speaking, he looked at Elder Hua and said with a smile, Senior, please follow me. After that, Fire Lotus led Elder Hua towards the castle. Why have they all become cultivation maniacs? Forget it, let's talk to Xiao Xian. The mermaid princess shook her head and walked towards the madman's courtyard. Inside the castle, Fire Lotus stood in the main hall and said with a smile, Senior Hua, no one will disturb you here. Furthermore, you don't have to worry about time because the Black Tortoise world has a time array that lasts for a day and 1,000 years. Impressive. Elder Hua looked around. While praising, there seemed to be a trace of fear in his eyes. Because he was currently inside the castle. If the castle wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping its hand. Suddenly, he looked towards a cultivation room on the second floor and muttered, what a dense pill aura. That's Dan Wongkai refining pills. He's the most powerful alchemist here. Most of our pills are also provided by him. Fire Lotus smiled slightly. They're all provided by him. Then, Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo's 7 dragon-shaped divine pills were also refined by him. Elder Hua was surprised. Yes. Dan Wongkai is just like his name. Other than refining pills, he's not interested in anything else. Even if he wants to cultivate, Qin Dage has to force him to do so. Fire Lotus shook her head and smiled. Then he's really a true alchemist fanatic. But then again, if he's not so obsessed, how could he have such achievements? Elder Hua chuckled. That makes sense. Fire Lotus nodded. Then, is he the only alchemist here? Elder Hua asked. Of course not. Qin Dage is also an alchemist. Fire Lotus shook her head. He's also an alchemist. Elder Hua was stunned. Yes. Qin Dage's alchemy talent is actually better than Dan Wangcai's. Fire Lotus nodded. What? Elder Hua was stunned. Back then, Dan Wangcai admired Qin Dage's alchemy talent and followed Qin Dage. However, after Dan Wangcai joined our family, Qin Dage basically did not come across any pills. So now, he's not even as good as Dan Wangcai. It's considered a waste. Fire Lotus smiled. Ah. Elder Hua was stunned. With such a good alchemy talent, it was actually wasted. Wasn't this a waste of God's gift? In fact, Qin Feiyang did not really waste it. Because of the soul refining technique, his mental energy was increasing at any time. Moreover, his mental energy had always been stronger than Dan Wangcai. So, if he were to refine pills now, he would at most be rusty. In terms of quality, Qin Feiyang would definitely be better. Anyway, Qin Dage is a person who hates troublesome things. To him, alchemy is a troublesome thing. Fire Lotus smiled. Alright, who asked him to be a monster? A monster has the capital to be willful. Elder Hua nodded helplessly. Suddenly, he looked at a cultivation room on the first floor with a trace of surprise in his eyes. In this cultivation room, he actually felt an inexplicable fear. Moreover, it was a fear that came from the power of law. Who's the person in there? Elder Hua asked in surprise. The white-eyed wolf. It's Qin Dage's partner. It has been with Qin Dage since they were young. Fire Lotus smiled. A wolf? Elder Hua was even more surprised. How could a mere wolf give him such a feeling? It seemed that anyone who was close to Qin Feiyang, be it a beast or a person, was not simple. The cultivation room on the first floor is for Qin Dage, the white-eyed wolf, and Frenzy. Let's go to the second floor. Huo Lian lightly smiled. Then, she led Elder Hua to the second floor. Black Tortoise World. Time flew by. 100 years had passed. Western region. Qin Feiyang, who was standing above the Blood Sea, seemed to have forgotten where he was. In other words, he had entered a state of selflessness. Fortunately, he was in the Black Tortoise World. Otherwise, he would be in danger. Because in his current state, anyone with a little bit of strength could kill him. At this moment, Qin Feiyang looked at the countless living beings in the Black Tortoise World. He seemed to see something faintly discernible in them. Another few years passed. These things, he saw more and more clearly. It turned out that they were threads of karma that were inextricably linked to him. Judging from these threads, almost all the living beings in the Black Tortoise World had an unbreakable karma connection with him. Moreover, not only did he see the threads of karma between him and everyone, but he also saw the threads of karma of others. For example, a family, a force, and the people in a city were all connected by the threads of karma. In Qin Feiyang's eyes, the Black Tortoise World was covered with spider webs. Those spiderwebs not only connected everyone together, but they also tied everyone's fates together. Another 100 years passed. Qin Feiyang saw something different again. He realized that these threads of karma all carried different emotions. And he could clearly feel these emotions. Some were anger. Some were hatred. Some were love. Some were jealousy. Some were concern. Wait. In short, he could feel the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the world on these threads of karma. Why do these emotions exist? Qin Feiyang continued to observe. After another few decades, his calm face finally revealed a look of realization, and he opened his eyes. The 7 emotions and 6 desires that he felt on the threads of karma were actually the emotions that were transmitted between people. For example, he and the mermaid princess loved each other, so the love, concern, and so on were transmitted. Then there was Mu Tianyang. From Mu Tianyang's threads of karma, he could feel hostility, jealousy, and dissatisfaction. In other words, karma was also filled with the 7 emotions and 6 desires. After figuring this out, Qin Feiyang felt as if the clouds were parted and he saw the sky. His heart immediately became clear. This was the other side of the law of karma. He closed his eyes again. This time, the threads of karma were even more obvious. Boom! Soon. The law of karma in his body surged out uncontrollably. And in his perception, the thousands of threads of karma were also surging toward him. Gradually, a colorful divine light appeared in front of him. This divine light was filled with all kinds of karma, and it became brighter and brighter. In the end, it even illuminated the entire western region. What's happening? The creatures at the edge of the western region looked at the void that suddenly filled with colorful light, their eyes full of surprise. This seems to be the aura of the Lord Ruler. That's right, it's him. The Lord Ruler must be about to break through. Everyone, keep your voices down. Don't disturb him. You're thinking too much. Even if it's the Lord Ruler, he must be in the central area of the Blood Sea. How can he be disturbed from so far away? That's true. I'm curious. What is the Lord Ruler cultivating to actually produce such a divine light? Everyone looked at the center of the Blood Sea curiously. At this moment, not only Qin Feiyang, but the surrounding void was also drowned by the colorful light, as bright as the clouds. Clang! Suddenly, a sound like a divine weapon appearing sounded in the sky above the western region, shocking everyone. In the next instant, a lotus flower suddenly appeared in the colorful divine light that drowned the sky. This lotus flower was about the size of an adult's palm. It was colorful, and it emitted a terrifying aura. The 5th profundity, Divine Lotus. At this moment, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes, which were full of surprise. That's right. He succeeded. He had comprehended it. Boom! In the next moment, his aura also soared. In just a few blinks of the eye, his cultivation broke through to the initial stage of the ruler realm. I broke through, feeling the surging divine power in his body. Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. And the 5-colored divine lotus in front of him, he could clearly feel that it was much more powerful than the 5th profundity of the law of thunder. With this 5-colored divine lotus, as long as the other party did not grasp an ultimate law like the law of karma, he could crush anyone in the same realm as him. Chapter 32:18. At the same time that Qin Feiyang comprehended the 5th profundity, Madman was sitting on a cushion in his private room. His eyes were closed, and his expression was very serene. On the side, the vice leader was half lying on a reclining chair with his eyes closed. But suddenly, Madman frowned and slowly opened his eyes. There was a trace of confusion in his eyes. What's wrong? The vice leader opened his eyes and looked at him with a smile. After receiving your guidance, my comprehension of the law of death is much more thorough than before. I even have a feeling that the 5th profound is standing right in front of me, but I just can't break through this barrier. I feel like I'm still missing something. Madman frowned. What you encountered, this seat has also encountered it before. The vice leader smiled. Then what is the last point? Madman looked at the vice leader suspiciously. You can only comprehend it yourself. Once you comprehend it, you will succeed. However, this seat can give you a clear path. The vice leader smiled. Please speak. Madman's eyes were filled with expectation. Come closer. The vice leader sat up straight and smiled. Madman got up and walked in front of the vice leader and moved his head closer. The vice leader whispered something in Madman's ear. That's right, this sentence. But this sentence caused Madman's eyes to tremble and his face to turn pale. He looked at the vice leader and asked, "Are you serious? This seat never jokes." The vice leader said. "But," Madman frowned. "This is the fastest way. Of course, you have to have the ability to comprehend it, otherwise you will die." The vice leader said. Madman went silent. After a long time, he laughed. "What I like the most is taking risks, especially those that walk on the edge of death." The vice leader was stunned for a moment before he shook his head and smiled. "You brat." Madman smiled and asked, "Right, how long have I been in seclusion?" "Almost 200 years. The vice leader smiled. "What? Almost 200 years?" Madman immediately asked, "Then isn't the exchange conference over?" "You also know about the exchange conference." The vice leader was taken aback. "That's for sure. It's such a big deal that everyone is talking about it." Madman nodded. He had actually missed the exchange. The vice leader smiled and said, "The exchange hasn't started yet." "What? It hasn't started yet? Is there a delay?" Madman was suspicious. "No." The Vice Alliance Master shook his head and smiled. "I didn't tell you in advance, but this secret room has a 500-year time formation. That's why I brought you here. With the time formation, you won't waste too much time." "Time array?" Madman looked around the secret room in shock. "Yes. Back then, when I asked your master to help me set up this time formation, it took me a lot of effort. I don't know what's wrong with this old thing. He just likes to go against me." The vice leader shook his head. "That gave me a fright. I thought the exchange had already ended." Madman patted his chest. "What is it? You brothers also want to participate in the exchange?" The vice leader asked. "Of course. The geniuses of the 4 super forces are gathering. We definitely have to go and take a look." Madman chuckled. "Then you'll be disappointed." The vice leader shook his head. "What do you mean?" Madman was startled and looked at him suspiciously. "I've already discussed with Old Man Chi. We won't allow you brothers to participate in the exchange." The vice leader said. "Why?" Madman frowned. "Your talents are indeed very good. Even in the entire Sky Cloud realm, you're at the top. No one can surpass you. However, you still haven't matured. With your half-step ruler cultivation, you won't be their match. We're also thinking for you, so that you won't accidentally die. This isn't just your loss, it's also the loss of my Rogue Cultivator Alliance." The vice leader said with a smile. "So you guys care about us that much?" Madman grinned. "Who asked you brothers to be our disciples?" The vice leader shook his head and smiled. "What about Yi Tian?" Madman asked. "It's even more impossible for him to participate. The people going this time are all older than you. The lowest cultivation is at the initial stage ruler realm. He's only at the peak undying realm. Isn't he just sending himself to death? In short, Tian is the same as you guys. He still needs time to grow." The vice leader said. "All right." Madman nodded and smiled. "Then I'll leave first." "Thank you. I suddenly realized that you're quite a good person." "Ah." The vice leader looked at Madman in shock and asked curiously, "Then in your eyes, what kind of person was I?" "You really want to know?" Madman asked. "N." The vice leader nodded. "Then I'll tell you." "Don't be angry." Madman said. "I won't be angry." The vice leader shook his head. "I don't believe you. Open the door to the secret room first." Madman pointed at the closed stone door. "Why are you so long-winded?" The vice leader glared at Madman and waved his hand. The stone door opened and he said, "Speak now." In the past, the impression you gave me was that you didn't recognize your family, apathetic, and cold, finished. Madman turned around and ran out like a wisp of smoke. Ah! The vice leader was stunned. He looked at the empty secret passage outside and the veins on his forehead couldn't help but pop out. He didn't chase after me. After running for a while, Madman turned around and couldn't help but be stunned. He thought that these words would anger the vice leader, but he didn't expect that there was no movement at all. It seemed that they had completely obtained the vice leader's trust. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed him to be so presumptuous. Wait. I used almost 200 years to complete the law of time. Then wouldn't 300 to 400 years have passed in the Black Tortoise world? No, I have to hurry out and ask old Qin how his harvest was. But, it shouldn't be as great as mine. Madman smiled proudly and ran out. At this moment, Qin Feiyang had already returned to the Devil's Land. Penthouse, bedroom. Qin Feiyang and the Mermaid Princess were entangled for a while, then leaned against the back of the bed and asked, "Where's Elder Hua and the Demon Palace Hall Master?" The Palace Hall Master left long ago. But Elder Hua stayed behind. The Mermaid Princess lay in Qin Feiyang's arms, her face flushed red. Why did he stay behind? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Doesn't Elder Hua control the law of time? That's why Sister Fire Lotus begged him to stay. All these years, he has been in the cultivation room, guiding Sister Fire Lotus step by step. The Mermaid Princess smiled. So that's how it is. Huo Lian, this girl is quite clever. Qin Feiyang chuckled. With Elder Hua's strength and status, who knew how many people in the Eastern continent dreamed of getting his guidance, let alone guiding them step by step. That was a great honor. What do you think? After all, Sister Fire Lotus was once the palace master of the Nine Heavens Palace. The Mermaid Princess rolled her eyes at him. Hee, let's not talk about her. Let's do it again. Qin Feiyang hugged the naked and soft body and crawled into the bed. Buzz. However, at this moment, the divine sound transmission stone in the pocket of the clothes on the bedside table rang. What a bummer. Qin Feiyang crawled out of the bed and took out the divine sound transmission stone. After checking it, he was slightly stunned. Who is it? The Mermaid Princess popped her head out and asked. Senior Brother Madman. After saying that, Qin Feiyang sat up and activated the divine sound transmission stone. You should at least put on some clothes. The Mermaid Princess hurriedly said. I'm a man, what's there to be afraid of? Just wrap yourself in the quilt. Qin Feiyang bared his teeth and smiled. As the divine sound transmission stone was activated, Madman's image suddenly appeared. What the hell, what are you doing? You're not wearing any clothes and lying on the bed. Madman was stunned. What do you think? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Madman rolled his eyes and said with a smile, I understand. Then, why don't you guys continue first? I'll send you another message later. Get lost. Say it, what's the matter? Qin Feiyang asked. I just want to ask you, have you comprehended the fifth profound of the cause and effect law? Madman said. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. No, you're still in the mood to do that. Madman was speechless. The power of law is very important, but it can't affect the normal life of husband and wife. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and asked, what about you? Have you comprehended the fifth profound of the law of death? I haven't either. Madman shook his head regretfully. It can't be. Qin Feiyang was stunned. I'm just one step away. My head hurts. Madman rubbed his head. Then, it's only a matter of time. Qin Feiyang asked. It's hard to say. Anyway, we'll see when the time comes. Madman shook his head and asked, are you still outside? Yes. At a place called Black Phoenix Mountain. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then come back quickly. I'll go to the Black Tortoise world to ponder. Madman said. One day in the Black Tortoise world was 1,000 years, and only a few hundred years had passed. So, there were still 2 days before the exchange began. In other words, as long as he entered the Black Tortoise world, there were still 2,000 years to comprehend. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the sound transmission god stone. Why did you lie to him? Mermaid Princess popped her head out and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. I was planning to give him a surprise. Qin Feiyang smirked. You. Mermaid Princess shook her head and laughed. Okay then, I'll return to the Alliance capital first. Qin Feiyang got up and quickly put on his clothes. He kissed Mermaid Princess on the forehead and turned to leave. As soon as he went out, he saw a person standing in the tea garden, curiously looking at the tea trees around. Elder Hua. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He stepped in front of Elder Hua and asked, when did you come out? A while ago. Elder Hua faintly smiled and asked, did you cultivate these tea trees? No, it's fire lotus. Qin Feiyang shook his head. So it's this girl. Elder Hua nodded and turned to Qin Feiyang. He smiled and asked, how's your comprehension? Chapter 32:19. Qin Feiyang smiled and released his aura. The aura of a new sovereign was the best proof. Amazing! Elder Hua exclaimed. You're too kind. It's all thanks to the Hall Master's good advice. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Although the Hall Master gave a hint, those with poor comprehension wouldn't be able to understand it. Elder Hua shook his head and smiled. This time, my demon hall has done you a favor. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Why did it suddenly change to this topic? Since you've done me a favor, shouldn't you repay the favor? Elder Hua's eyes contained a trace of a sinister smile. Ah! Qin Feiyang was stunned. He shook his head and said, if you have something to say, just say it. Give fire lotus to this old man. Elder Hua said. What? Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. He hurriedly said, Elder Hua, I know fire lotus is very beautiful, but the age gap between you two is too big. What are you talking about? Elder Hua's face darkened. He said angrily, this old man wants fire lotus to be my disciple. I see. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and said apologetically, I'm sorry, it's a misunderstanding. I really don't know what's in your head all the time. Elder Hua rolled his eyes. He then smiled and said, Fire Lotus's comprehension is pretty good. I've only guided her for a short while, but she's already comprehended the fourth profound. The fourth profound? Doesn't that mean she's only one step away from becoming a half-step sovereign? Qin Feiyang nodded. Yes. Elder Hua nodded and smiled. Most importantly, my demon hall hasn't produced anyone who has comprehended the law of time. There's no one to inherit this old man's ability. So you're planning to take Fire Lotus as your disciple and make her your successor? Qin Feiyang asked. Don't talk nonsense. It's not easy to take over this old man's position in the demon hall. Elder Hua shook his head. Then what is your identity in the Devil Palace? Qin Feiyang was curious. Until now, he only knew that Elder Hua was from the Demon Palace. He didn't know anything else. Guess. Elder Hua smiled mysteriously. Judging from the Hall Master's attitude towards you, he seems to be very courteous. Could it be that you are the Vice Hall Master? Qin Feiyang asked. No. Elder Hua shook his head. No. Qin Feiyang was stunned. I won't beat around the bush with you. This old man is actually the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. Elder Hua smiled. Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. That's right. In the past, this old man was indeed the Vice Hall Master of the Devil Palace. However, I have long since given up my position. Originally, after abdicating, this old man planned to conceal my identity and live a carefree life. However, there was nothing I could do about it. The palace master repeatedly begged me to continue staying in the demon palace. Moreover, he even made me the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. However, don't underestimate the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. His authority in the Demon Palace is not inferior to that of the Vice Hall Master. Elder Hua smiled. Then, who is the Vice Hall Master of the Devil Palace now? Qin Feiyang was curious. You've seen him before. Elder Hua smiled. Seen him before? Figures flashed past Qin Feiyang's mind. He had seen Elder Hua, the Hall Master, and Chu Yun before. Could it be Chu Yun? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. This girl, Chu Yun, is also this old man's student. However, this girl has surpassed me. Although her strength is not as good as mine for the time being, her ability is above mine. Moreover, all the devil pavilions in the eastern continent are managed by her. Elder Hua smiled. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and said with a smile, then, I have really underestimated her in the past. Then, what do you think about the Fire Lotus? Elder Hua asked. The Fire Lotus has the right to make her own decisions. Therefore, you have to ask her personally. Qin Feiyang said. But she said that she will listen to you. Elder Hua was helpless. He had already mentioned this to the Fire Lotus face to face, but the Fire Lotus attitude was that if Qin Dage said it was okay, then it was okay. This girl, Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and pondered for a while before saying, it is her fortune to be able to become your disciple. Of course, I will not object. However, she has to stay in the Black Tortoise world. Understood. After all, the Black Tortoise world has a time array that lasts 1,000 years. It will be of great help to her cultivation. Elder Hua nodded. All right then. She will be your disciple. Qin Feiyang smiled. Haha, this old man will go and ask her to become your disciple now. Elder Hua laughed and flew toward the ancient castle. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. This old man was quite interesting. Shwa. With a thought, he appeared at the peak of the Black Phoenix Mountain. Then, he opened a space-time gate and descended outside the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Then, he flew toward the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Very soon. He returned to the Hall of Fame. Frenzy was already waiting in the cave. Qin Feiyang also deliberately suppressed his cultivation. He was still a half-step ruler. Let me tell you a piece of good news. Frenzy chuckled. I also have a piece of good news to tell you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then you go first. Frenzy said. You go first. Qin Feiyang sat beside the tea table and looked at Frenzy. Frenzy sat opposite Qin Feiyang and said, Vice Alliance Leader, they forbid us from participating in the exchange. This is also considered good news. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Of course. If they forbid us from going, then can't we reveal our true identities and participate as core disciples of the Devil Palace? Frenzy said. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. If the Vice Alliance Leader also allowed them to participate in the exchange, then they wouldn't be able to participate as core disciples of the Devil Palace. Although our identities might still be exposed in the end, it's best to delay it as much as possible. At that time, we will seal the cave and announce to the outside world that we are in seclusion. In fact, we will secretly leave the Azure Wave Snow Mountain and head to the Heavenly Cloud Sea. Frenzy smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then what's your good news? Frenzy asked. Elder Hua wants to accept Fire Lotus as his disciple. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? Frenzy was stunned. And he also said that he wants Fire Lotus to be his successor. Qin Feiyang chuckled. This is a good thing. Elder Hua's strength is unfathomable. The most important thing is that he also grasps the law of time. If Fire Lotus becomes his disciple, then he can teach her step by step. Frenzy said. He has already taught Fire Lotus step by step in the Black Tortoise world. Now, Fire Lotus has already comprehended the fourth profound of the law of time. Qin Feiyang smiled. Amazing. However, you can't let Elder Hua bring Fire Lotus to the Demon Palace. Frenzy said. Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. Since it's an apprenticeship, then is there a gift? Frenzy asked. I'm not sure about that. This is their own business. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Are you stupid? The Demon Palace is so much stronger than the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Their resources are definitely better than the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance doesn't have many supreme treasures, but the Demon Palace definitely has a lot. Not to mention others, they definitely have more than the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Such a good opportunity, why don't you personally go and let Fire Lotus take the opportunity to get a few? Frenzy stared at Qin Feiyang as if he expected better from Qin Feiyang. What was going on in his head? The opportunity was right in front of him, but he didn't grasp it. Enough. If Elder Hua really wants to nurture Fire Lotus, even if others don't remind him, he will give Fire Lotus some divine items to protect himself. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Not everyone thinks the way you do. Frenzy pursed his lips and asked, then is Elder Hua still in the Black Tortoise world? N. Qin Feiyang nodded. Quickly send me in, I'll go take a look. Frenzy urged. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his hand, he sent Frenzy to the Black Tortoise world and then lowered his head to ponder. Blood Hall used the lives of the Sword Emperor and the other three to threaten him. When the exchange begins, would Blood Hall also bring the Sword Emperor and the other three? If he really brought them along, he might be able to find an opportunity to save them. However, Blood Hall shouldn't be so stupid. Even if they brought them, they should only bring the Sword Emperor. Because the portrait that appeared in the major cities of the Eastern continent was the Sword Emperor. In other words, at that time, even if he saved the Sword Emperor, he would have to think of another way to save the Mermaid Emperor and the other two. Exchange conference, Blood Hall, you guys tried every means to kill me, but I won't let you guys do as you wish. Just wait and see. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly as he prepared to enter the Black Tortoise world. Brother Qin. Suddenly, Yi Tian's voice sounded from outside. N. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. With a wave of his hand, the law of thunder on the door dissipated. Yi Tian strode in, but seemed to have something on his mind. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang stood up to welcome him. Have you heard about the exchange conference? Yi Tian asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then did my grandfather let you guys participate? Yi Tian asked. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. I didn't either, but it would be a pity to miss this kind of peak showdown of the younger generation, especially all the monsters of the 4 continents. Yi Tian sighed. Master is also thinking about us. Qin Feiyang laughed. Grandpa must have good intentions, but even if you don't participate, you can still bring us along to join in the fun. Yi Tian looked unhappy. You're not thinking of sneaking there, are you? Qin Feiyang was stunned. I have this intention. How about it, do you want to go together? This kind of peak showdown is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yi Tian looked at Qin Feiyang temptingly. It's not good to do this. Qin Feiyang hesitated. What's not good about it? When Grandpa blames me, I will bear the responsibility. Yi Tian said heroically. I still think it's inappropriate. The heavenly cloud sea is so dangerous. If we sneak there, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be any accidents. Brother Yi, I know what you're thinking. As the #1 monster in the Hall of Fame, you definitely won't be willing to hide in the Alliance capital. However, Master is right. We still need time to grow. There's still a long way to go. There will be opportunities in the future. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Yi Tian sighed and shook his head. I knew you would say that. Alright, just treat it as if I've never been here. After saying that, Yi Tian turned around and left. Spacetime law, Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Tian's back. This person's current strength was indeed a lot worse than those older disciples, but his future achievements would definitely be higher than those people. He only hoped that they would not become enemies in the future. Chapter 32:20. In the blink of an eye. The morning of the third day. Boom! 3 powerful auras suddenly descended above the Hall of the Exalted. Qin Feiyang, Madman, Zhao Shaojin, Yi Tian, the woman in green, and the other Hall of the Exalted disciples walked out of the cave. The Vice Leader, Great Elder, and the Hall of Famers stood side by side in the sky, their faces extremely solemn. They are going to the Sky Cloud Sea. I wonder who is going to participate in the exchange conference this time. Do you think Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui will go? They should. After all, their talents are so good. In this exchange conference, the 4 superpowers of the Sky Cloud realm will all be present. How can they miss such an opportunity to make a name for themselves? Everyone whispered. Disciples who are going to participate in the exchange conference, gather immediately. The Great Elder spoke, his voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions. Whoosh! Immediately. Figures rushed out from the mountains and landed in front of the 3 giants. There were a total of 50 people. There were men and women, fat and thin, all of them looked young. Without exception, each of them stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens, outstanding. Moreover, they all exuded an extremely strong aura. It's them. They are all geniuses in our Hall of the Exalted. It's almost impossible to see them appear usually. Many disciples suddenly had a fanatical look in their eyes. But at the same time, there were also doubts. Who are they? Are they qualified to participate in the exchange conference? Don't embarrass our rogue cultivator alliance. The owner of this questioning voice was none other than Madman. Ah! Hearing this voice, Yi Tian and the woman in green couldn't help but look at him in astonishment. What? Did I say something wrong? Madman said lightly. What do you know? Don't think that just because you have a little talent, you have the qualification to look down on others. Let me tell you, in front of them, you are nothing. The woman in green despised. Even if I am nothing, I am still stronger than you. Madman picked his nose. You, the woman in green suddenly glared at him. You are really enemies, quarreling when you meet. Yi Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Who is his enemy? The green-clothed woman's face was filled with disdain. You're right. I feel ashamed to be your enemy. Madman nodded. Bastard, I'll kill you. The green-clothed woman immediately pounced at Madman. She gritted her teeth as if she wanted nothing more than to cut Madman into pieces. Alright, stop messing around. Yi Tian stopped the 2 of them. He looked at Madman and said, Brother Wuhui, this time I'm on Dan Dan's side. These people can't be underestimated. Look at the young man standing in the 2nd row. The madman glanced at the green-clothed woman and looked in the direction Yi Tian was pointing. There was indeed a young man who was about 8 feet tall. He looked like a small giant and his entire body emitted an explosive wild aura. This person is called Wang Quang. I heard that when he first reached the imperishable realm, he comprehended the law of strength and the law of war. At that time, he was called a monster that only appears once every 10,000 years. And the woman in white in the third row. Her name is Little Sister Sue. She also comprehended the law of water and the law of ice when she just entered the imperishable realm. Back then, she was praised as a rare genius girl. In short, among these people, none of them are ordinary. Yi Tian said in a low voice. Just reached the imperishable realm? Is that very impressive? Madman asked. Ah. Yi Tian was stunned. Then tell me, when did you comprehend the law of strength? The green-clothed woman looked at Madman. Why did he look so arrogant? Me? Madman was stunned and snorted, I'm afraid I'll scare you to death if I tell you. Then tell me, let's see if you can scare me to death. The green-clothed woman sneered. Zhao Xiaojin and Yi Tian also looked at Madman curiously. Madman smiled proudly and said, when I first comprehended the law of slaughter, I was only at the monarch god level. What? Monarch god level? The three of them were dazed. A monarch god already comprehended the law of strength? This was too perverted. Don't try to fool us. Do you think we're stupid? The green-clothed woman came back to her senses and stared at Madman angrily. If you don't believe me, ask my brother. Madman pointed at Qin Feiyang. Is this true? Yi Tian looked at Qin Feiyang. There's no need for him to lie about this. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Yi Tian sucked in a breath of cold air. He was indeed abnormal. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, then what about you? When did you comprehend the first law of strength? Me? Qin Feiyang thought for a moment and said with a smile, the first law of strength I comprehended was the law of light. At that time, my cultivation base seemed to be at the paragon god level. As for which realm it was, it's been so long that I forgot. The three of them looked at each other. One comprehended the law of slaughter at the monarch god level, and the other comprehended the law of light at the paragon god level. These two brothers, what kind of monsters were they? Madman's words were a bit unreliable, but since it came from Qin Feiyang's mouth, it was definitely not false. This was really like the old saying, comparisons are odious. At the same time. In the sky. Are you all ready? The Vice Alliance Master swept his gaze over the 50 people standing in front of them, a sharp glint in his eyes. We're ready. The 50 people spoke, their voices like thunder, and their bodies emitted a shocking sharpness. Very good. This exchange is an opportunity for our Wandering Cultivator Alliance to rise. We must do our best. The vice leader shouted. Yes. The 50 people spoke in unison, their voices sonorous and powerful, and there was a sense of determination between their brows. Then, let's go. Following the vice leader's order, the group immediately flew out of the Hall of Fame under the lead of the Grand Elder and disappeared at the end of the glacier. Whoosh! The vice leader and the Hall of Famers landed in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. Master. Grandpa. They all bowed. The vice leader looked at Yi Tian, Qin Feiyang, and Madman inside. I know you're unwilling, but Old Man Qi and I are doing this for your own good. You still can't compete with the core disciples of the four superpowers. That's right. The future is long. There will be opportunities for you to show your strength in the future. The Hall of Famers nodded in agreement. We understand. Qin Feiyang nodded. All right then. Don't run around while we're away. Cultivate well. The vice leader reminded them and then looked at the Hall of Famers. Then, they soared into the sky and flew away like lightning. They're all gone. Who will be in charge of the Wandering Cultivator Alliance's affairs in the future? Madman was suspicious. Aren't the other 8 elders still here? Yi Tian shook his head. Brother Yi, I have a question. Are there only 50 lesser sovereigns in the Hall of Fame? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Of course not. There are at least 800 lesser sovereigns in the Hall of Fame. However, the others can't compare to these 50 people. Because these 50 people have already comprehended the fourth profound of the fourth law. Yi Tian said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Comprehending the fifth profound of three laws meant that they were lesser sovereigns. And comprehending the fifth profound of four laws meant that they were greater sovereigns. Now, these 50 people had already comprehended the fourth profound of four laws. They were only one step away from becoming greater sovereigns. Indeed. They were the strongest among the disciples. Alright. This is not something we should be concerned about. Go back and cultivate. By the way, Dandan, come here for a while. I have something to tell you. Yi Tian shook his head and returned to his cave. All right. The green-clothed woman responded. Then, she glared at Madman and ran into Yi Tian's cave. So even they didn't have the chance to participate. There's nothing we can do about it. Although they're talented, they're not strong enough. That's true. With their cultivation, they'll only be abused if they go to the conference. Wait. Did you forget about the other two? Who? Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. That's right. After they seized the Zhao clan's crystal vein and soul vein, they seemed as if they'd vanished into thin air and never showed themselves again. This time, all the geniuses of the Skycloud realm are gathering at the Skycloud Ocean. I wonder if they'll join in the fun. I don't think so. Although the two of them have sovereign weapons, their strength is still far from enough. That might not be the case. If they really go to the Skycloud Ocean, then the conference will definitely be very lively. Everyone was discussing. Hearing these discussions, Zhao Xiaojin held back his laughter and said via voice transmission, if they were to find out that the two of you are Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, I wonder what expressions they would make. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Qin Dage, Big Brother Mo, are you really not going? Zhao Xiaojin asked. Take a guess. Madman smiled mysteriously. Ah. Zhao Xiaojin was stunned. Looking at Madman's eyes, he knew that he definitely wouldn't miss such a good thing. Wait a minute. This doesn't seem to be a good thing. Qin Feiyang thought, I think not only me and senior brother Madman, but your big brother Yi Tian might also sneak over to join in the fun. What? Zhao Xiaojin couldn't help but turn to look at cave abode number 1. How about it? Do you want to go too? Madman chuckled. Me? Zhao Xiaojin was stunned and asked, can I? No. Before Madman could speak, Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why not? It's good to go and join in the fun. Madman said. Don't forget our purpose for going. If our identities are really exposed in the end, Xiaojin will be implicated if she follows us. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. That's true. Madman nodded. Alright then, I won't go. You guys must be careful. Zhao Xiaojin warned. She still had self-awareness. Although she didn't know the real purpose of Qin Feiyang and Madman's trip, she knew that it must be something dangerous. If she insisted on going, she would only be a burden to the two of them. Cultivate well. Don't let your father down. If our identities are really exposed, you have to immediately cut ties with us and even have the chance to kill us in public. Only in this way can you remove the suspicion. Qin Feiyang secretly reminded. I understand. Zhao Xiaojin nodded. In addition, you must not let others know about the potential mark on your body. Otherwise, it will bring you a fatal disaster. Qin Feiyang said. Don't worry, I know what to do. Zhao Xiaojin smiled. Alright then. Qin Feiyang smiled and led Madman back to the cave abode. Sigh. Zhao Xiaojin glanced at Qin Feiyang and Madman's cave abode and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She wondered if this was the last time they would meet. Then, she returned to the cave abode. Chapter 32-21 Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyang found Elder Hua. Elder Hua said, "I've already contacted Chu Yun. We'll meet at the coast of Heavenly Cloud Ocean." Okay. I'll go out and think of a way to leave Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Qin Feiyang left Black Tortoise World alone and stood in his cave dwelling. Should he bring Black Dragon and Fire Luan along? Black Dragon and Fire Luan were both perfect sovereigns. If he brought them along, they would definitely be of great help. However, he was worried that his identity would be exposed and they would turn against him. There was also the Fire Dragon. If it knew that he was going to the exchange, it would definitely shamelessly follow him. Black Dragon and Fire Luan were fine, but if something happened to the Fire Dragon, how would he explain it to the Alliance Master and Fire Dragon's parents? They might even find him to settle the score. Forget it. I'm not bringing either. Qin Feiyang shook his head and walked out of the cave dwelling. Seeing that there was no one around, he activated the law of lightning and sealed the cave dwelling. Then, he prepared to activate the concealment technique and leave. I knew you wouldn't stay in the cave dwelling obediently. Suddenly, a sneaky laugh sounded behind him. Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. This voice belonged to Black Dragon. He turned around and saw Black Dragon, Fire Luan, and Fire Dragon squatting at the entrance of cave dwelling number 4, looking at him with shifty eyes. What are you doing squatting there? Qin Feiyang looked at the three beasts suspiciously. What do you think? Black Dragon asked. How would I know? Qin Feiyang laughed. Still playing dumb? Brother, if you want to go to the exchange, just say it. We're not outsiders. Is there a need to hide it from us? Black Dragon walked out, his eyes full of disdain. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm just bored and want to go out for a walk. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Is that so? It just so happens that we're bored. Why don't we go out for a walk? Black Dragon looked at him playfully. The Fire Luan and Fire Dragon were the same. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. It seemed that it would not be easy to get rid of these three fellows. Look, a female dragon. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and pointed behind the three beasts. Female dragon. The Fire Dragon immediately looked behind him, but it was empty. However, the Black Dragon and the Fire Luan remained indifferent, as if they had already seen through Qin Feiyang's little trick. No. The Fire Dragon glanced at the void, then turned back to look at Qin Feiyang. Are you stupid? You actually believed it. He's obviously trying to distract us so that he can slip away. The Black Dragon looked at it with disdain. Ugh. The Fire Dragon was astonished. He looked at Qin Feiyang with a dark face and said angrily, You bastard, you're too dishonest. What do you want? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The Fire Dragon was easy to fool, but the Black Dragon and the Fire Luan were two wily old foxes. It was impossible to fool them. Nothing, we're just going out for a stroll. After all, you'll be lonely if you go out alone, right? The Black Dragon looked at him mockingly. I don't feel lonely. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Believe me, as time goes by, you'll definitely feel lonely. The Black Dragon chuckled. Fine, follow me if you want. Qin Feiyang's face was dark as he turned around and flew outside. The three beasts looked at each other and laughed sinisterly. They followed Qin Feiyang unhurriedly. He wanted to test his patience with these three fellows. But no matter what, the three beasts kept following him. They even talked and laughed as if they were out to relax. Why is it so troublesome? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang, you didn't even leave the alliance. Little Yun is urging you. Elder Hua's voice suddenly sounded. Qin Feiyang sighed, stopped, and looked at the three beasts. What are you doing? The three beasts looked at him suspiciously. Fine, we'll go to the border together, but we have to make a deal. Qin Feiyang said. See, you finally can't hold it in anymore. You're really naive to want to test our patience. The black dragon smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Cut the crap. How about we make a deal? Say it. The black dragon said. First, all of you have to listen to me. Second, without my permission, all of you have to stay in my space god item and can't run around. Third, no matter what happens in the future, you're not allowed to attack me. Qin Feiyang said. The first and third are no problem. But for the second, you want us to stay in your space god item. What's the difference between that and being locked up in the Hall of the Exalted? The black dragon frowned. So, do you agree or not? Qin Feiyang asked. No. The three beasts shook their heads. They were just there to join in the fun. What was the point of staying in the space god item? If you don't agree, don't follow me. Qin Feiyang said angrily. We don't agree, but we have to follow you. If you're so capable, you can chase us away by force. The black dragon looked at him provocatively. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. How could a divine dragon act like a hooligan? He pondered for a while. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, Elder Hua, I've run into some trouble. Why don't you let Chu Yun bring some people to Sky Cloud Island first? What trouble? Elder Hua was suspicious. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. So that's the case. How about this? Leave the Itinerant Cultivators Alliance first, find a place where there's no one, and have a showdown with them. If they dare to do anything to you, I'll kill them directly. Elder Hua said telepathically. Kill them? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. Otherwise, if you keep them by your side, they'll become a disaster sooner or later. Elder Hua said. Are you confident? Qin Feiyang asked secretly. Of course. They haven't comprehended the strongest law, let alone the supreme profound. It's easy for me to kill them. Elder Hua said proudly. Okay then. Qin Feiyang agreed secretly. This was a good way to solve the problem once and for all. With Elder Hua's help, he could abandon all his worries. If the soft approach didn't work, then he would use the hard approach. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly as he looked at the three beasts and said, let's leave the Kanglan Snow Mountain first. Okay. The black dragon nodded. Whoosh! Immediately. One man and three beasts rushed towards the border. When Zhang de Yuan saw Qin Feiyang and the three beasts, he couldn't help but be stunned and asked, don't tell me you guys want to sneak to Sky Cloud Ocean too? What do you mean? Qin Feiyang and the three beasts were taken aback. They wanted to sneak there too. Could it be that someone was one step ahead of them? Zhang de Yuan said, young Master Yi Tian and the Great Elder's granddaughter just left. As expected. Qin Feiyang muttered. However, this person's speed was quite fast. He was actually ahead of him. Alright, I know that I can't persuade you guys. Be careful. Zhang de Yuan directly took out the token and opened the barrier. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led the three beasts out, but suddenly turned to look at Zhang de Yuan and said, there is something you must remember. Zhang de Yuan looked at him suspiciously. If anything happens in the future, you must remember to cut ties with me immediately. Qin Feiyang said. What do you mean? Zhang de Yuan was a little confused. You will understand in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled and then said, "Of course, you can escape from the Rogue Cultivators Alliance immediately and come to me." After saying that, he left with the three beasts without looking back. Escape from the Rogue Cultivators Alliance? Zhang de Yuan was stunned. What the hell is this? Outside the glacier, in a desolate mountain. Qin Feiyang and the three beasts landed in a valley. Why did you stop here? The three beasts were suspicious. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the three beasts in silence. The three beasts looked at each other with a puzzled look. I think there are some things that I have to tell you guys. Qin Feiyang smiled. What is it? The three beasts were curious. My identity. Qin Feiyang took it and took out a facial restoration pill. This is a facial restoration pill. The Black Dragon and Fire Yuan were stunned. Could it be, the same thought appeared in their minds at the same time. Could it be that the person in front of them didn't have his real face? Qin Feiyang took the facial restoration pill and quickly restored his true appearance. You are, the two beasts' eyes suddenly trembled as they stared at Qin Feiyang. The fire dragon's expression was very calm. Because when they were in the trial ground, Qin Feiyang had already confessed to it. Therefore, it had long known Qin Feiyang's true identity. Don't overreact. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang, the Black Dragon murmured, looked at Qin Feiyang and suddenly said angrily, "Bastard, you killed Mo Yuanyuan?" I killed Mo Yuanyuan. Qin Feiyang was stunned. You dare to kill my brother, I will destroy you. The Fire Yuan was even more irritable. When it came back to its senses, it erupted with a terrifying aura and directly pounced at Qin Feiyang. Wait, wait, wait. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Your reaction is a bit too surprising, let me think about it first." Why did the Black Dragon and Fire Yuan have such a reaction after seeing his true appearance? Wait. Could it be that these two guys thought he killed Mo Yuanyuan and then disguised themselves as him to infiltrate the Rogue Cultivators Alliance? What's there to think about? Tell me the truth, when did you kill Brother Mo? Let me tell you, even if you have a Dominator's divine weapon, I will avenge Brother Mo. The Black Dragon's eyes flashed fiercely. Ah! Qin Feiyang was stunned, then a sly look flashed in his eyes and asked, "Even if you die, you will avenge Mo Yuanyuan?" That's right. He saved my life. The Black Dragon nodded. How loyal. Qin Feiyang muttered. Hearing this, he was quite touched. Don't talk nonsense with me, where is Mo Yuanyuan's body? The Black Dragon shouted. What are you thinking about? Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and said, I didn't kill Mo Yuanyuan, because I am Mo Yuanyuan, and Mo Yuanyuan is me, do you understand? What do you mean? The two beasts frowned, unable to understand. They couldn't be blamed because this was too sudden. Although they were shouting to kill, they were actually very nervous. After all, everyone knew that this person had a Dominator's divine weapon, so they were a little slow. Chapter 32-22. Don't you understand? Qin Feiyang pointed at himself and said, I am Mo Yuanyuan, the real Mo Yuanyuan. Aren't you Qin Feiyang? How can you be Mo Yuanyuan? The two beasts were suspicious. Oh my god, Qin Feiyang looked at the sky speechlessly and said, Mo Yuanyuan is just an identity that I used to enter the alliance. Let's put it this way, Mo Yuanyuan and I are the same person. Do you understand? The same person? You mean, from the beginning, Mo Yuanyuan was you? Huo Wan was suspicious. That's right, that's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. He had finally turned the corner. Where's the evidence? Black Dragon immediately questioned again. That's right. Just because you say so. I can also say that I am Mo Yuanyuan. Do you believe me? You have to show me the evidence. Huo Wan also nodded. Qin Feiyang was a little helpless and asked, "What evidence do you want?" The two of them thought for a while and said in unison, "The power of law." The appearance could be changed, but the power of law could not be changed. As long as they showed the power of law, they would be able to tell if Qin Feiyang and Mo Yuanyuan were the same person. All right. Qin Feiyang was helpless. With a wave of his hand, the power of the 7 laws appeared. The law of light, the law of force, the law of war, the law of wind, the law of massacre, the law of light, and the law of cause and effect. Black Dragon and Huoluan looked at them one by one. The more they looked, the more shocked they were. Whoosh! In the end, the two beasts looked at Qin Feiyang in unison. "So, you are really Qin Feiyang? And Mo Yuanyuan?" Black Dragon asked. "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "And Mo Wuhui is also the madman Mo that you all know." "Madman Mo?" Black Dragon was slightly stunned. "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Damn, you two really have guts. You actually dared to infiltrate the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and even become the Vice Alliance leader and a personal disciple of the Hall of Famers." The Black Dragon was stunned. All these years, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance had been searching for the two of them everywhere. However, they never expected that the two of them had already infiltrated the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and stayed by everyone's side. "Now that you know who I am, it's time for you to make a statement," Qin Feiyang said. "Take a stand." The Black Dragon and Fire One stared blankly. What kind of attitude was that? Stand. Are we still friends like before, or are we still enemies in the future? Qin Feiyang asked. Listen to what you're saying. As long as you are Mo Feng Yuan, then we are still friends. The Black Dragon immediately spoke, looking at Qin Feiyang with displeasure. Then you've never thought of dealing with me? Qin Feiyang asked. Why would I want to deal with you? You're my brother and my benefactor. Why would I want to deal with you? Do you think I have nothing better to do? Besides, I don't have any direct relationship with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Why would I help them deal with you? The Black Dragon said. That's right. We only recognize you as a person. Everything else has nothing to do with us. Fire One also said. Thank you. Qin Feiyang breathed a sigh of relief. His eyes were filled with gratitude. He had thought too much before. There was no falling out at all. This was because the attitude of a beast was like this. As long as they recognized you as a friend, they would never change their attitude for the rest of their life. As for this guy, the Black Dragon and Fire One looked at the Fire Dragon. Their eyes flashed with killing intent. What are you guys trying to do? Let me tell you, bullying with numbers is the behavior of a villain. The Fire Dragon immediately began to retreat. His eyes were filled with vigilance. Then let's have a one-on-one battle. You can choose between me and Brother Fire One. You can't say that we're bullying with numbers. The Black Dragon chuckled. The Fire Dragon's face turned black. Both of them were perfect realm sovereigns. Wouldn't it be the same no matter who he chose? Qin Feiyang looked at the Fire Dragon with amusement. He stopped the Black Dragon and Fire One and said with a smile, You already know my identity, but you've kept it a secret for me. I think you can still be trusted. How about this, let's cooperate. Cooperate? The Fire Dragon was stunned. That's right. I sneaked into the Rogue Cultivator Alliance for only one purpose. That is to investigate the reason why the Vice Alliance leader wanted to kill me. Qin Feiyang nodded. This matter, I heard that the Vice Alliance leader ordered to kill you because of a person called Wang Hui. The Black Dragon asked. On the surface, that's the case. But what about the real situation? Do you really believe that he would sacrifice his grandson's reputation to kill me for a small Wang Hui? Qin Feiyang said. You mean, there's another reason behind this? The Black Dragon asked. That's right. Furthermore, I've already investigated it. Qin Feiyang took out the divine sound transmission stone. With a wave of his hand, a video slowly unfolded in the void. It was the conversation between the Vice Alliance leader and the black-robed man that he had recorded. What? He actually colluded with the Blood Hall. The Fire Dragon's body shook violently. His eyes were filled with disbelief. If he didn't see the evidence with his own eyes, he wouldn't dare to believe it. The Black Dragon and Fire Luan were also shocked. This was truly a piece of explosive news. Furthermore, I suspect that the Alliance leader in your father's disappearance should be related to him. Therefore, we can cooperate. My intention is also good. I've helped the Rogue Cultivator Alliance uncover such a big spy. Qin Feiyang said. I originally thought that someone was colluding with the Demon Palace, but I didn't expect him to be colluding with the Blood Hall. Outrageous. I'm going to announce his crimes. The Fire Dragon roared. Don't. Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped Huolong. He shook his head and said, if the Alliance Master and your parents are still alive, then if you were to announce his crimes now, he would definitely be driven to desperation and die together with the Alliance Master and your parents. This wouldn't benefit us at all. Then what do you think we should do? The Fire Dragon frowned. First, we have to find out whether your parents and the Alliance leader are alive or not, and whether they are controlled by him. Only then can we make the next step of the plan. Qin Feiyang said. The Fire Dragon pondered for a moment and nodded. Alright, we'll cooperate. If it's really related to him, I'll skin him alive. That's a wise move. Qin Feiyang smiled. The Fire Dragon glanced at him indifferently and said, what about Yi Tian? I can conclude that Yi Tian has nothing to do with this. Qin Feiyang said. That's good. I'm quite satisfied with Yi Tian. If he's also involved, then I'll feel bad. The Fire Dragon sighed. Then, you should have a purpose for going to the exchange, right? The Black Dragon looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Yes. You should have heard about the portraits that appeared in the major cities of the Eastern Continent 3 days ago, right? Qin Feiyang said. Yes. At that time, we were discussing why these inexplicable portraits would appear. The Black Dragon nodded. To be honest, the person in the portrait is my friend. And all of this is controlled by the Blood Hall. They did this to force me to participate in the exchange. If I don't go, this friend of mine will die in their hands. Qin Feiyang said. Then, what identity are you going with now? Huolwan asked. The Blood Hall wants my and senior brother Frenzy's lives. Of course, we have to go with our real identities. I didn't want to bring you guys along because I didn't want you to know my identity. But I didn't expect you guys to pester me and not let go. That's why I told you guys the truth. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Then, if we didn't shamelessly follow you, would you still keep hiding it from us? The Black Dragon frowned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Alright, as expected, you didn't treat us as brothers. I'm so sad. Brother Huolwan, let's go. The Black Dragon turned around and left with a sad face. Enough. You don't have the talent to act. Qin Feiyang was speechless. The Black Dragon grinned. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, now, I'm going to participate in the exchange as a core disciple of the Devil Hall. So, we have to meet up with the people of the Devil Hall later. Are you really a disciple of the Devil Hall? Fire Dragon frowned. I wasn't in the past, but now I am. This is also the deal that I discussed with Elder Hua and the Devil Hall Master. They will help me deal with the Blood Hall, and I will become a disciple of the Devil Hall. Qin Feiyang smiled. So that's how it is. Fire Dragon nodded and said with a frown, then, Were you the one who planned to execute me? Yes. Because I wanted to know the Alliance leader's whereabouts from you, I used this method to gain your trust. Qin Feiyang didn't hide anything. Despicable. Fire Dragon snorted. There's a problem with your words. Who am I doing this for? Isn't it to find out whether the Alliance leader and your parents are alive? Qin Feiyang looked at it with dissatisfaction. All right. Fire Dragon nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang, then, I wish us a happy cooperation. Qin Feiyang smiled and called Madman and Elder Hua out. Damn, you were actually hiding in his spatial divine item? Fire Dragon's pupils shrank when he saw Elder Hua. That's right. If you don't cooperate with Qin Feiyang, this old man will directly kill you. Elder Hua nodded. Bullying the weak, what kind of big shot are you? Fire Dragon grumbled with dissatisfaction. Madman also returned to his original appearance. He glanced at the three beasts and said, you guys are too conspicuous, change yourselves too. The three beasts looked at each other and didn't object. Fire Luan turned into a black crow, while Fire Dragon and Black Dragon turned into a red snake and a black snake respectively. Then let's go. Qin Feiyang glanced at the three beasts and then at Elder Hua. Elder Hua waved his hand and opened the altar. Then, he led Qin Feiyang and the three beasts towards the heavenly cloud ocean. Chapter 32-23. The Heavenly Cloud Sea. This place had different statuses in the eyes of different people. For example, the four super forces and the various giants of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance all regarded the Heavenly Cloud Sea as the biggest forbidden area. The reason was that there was a beast god here. Because this beast god was so powerful that even they were afraid of it. No one dared to cause trouble here. If there was nothing important, they would never step into the Heavenly Cloud Sea. But in the eyes of ordinary people, this was a relatively dangerous sea. If they had nothing to do, they would go in to explore and search for treasures. Although it was life-threatening, it was also a great fortune. So, the Heavenly Cloud Sea was a place that even the overlords feared, but it was also a place that ordinary people often went to. The coast. The sea wind whistled, rolling up huge waves that covered the sky. The crashing sound was deafening. Somewhere. About 100 people gathered in the void. The leader was a young and beautiful woman. She was tall and exquisite, wearing a snow-white dress. She was like a fairy from a painting, causing the world here to lose its color because of her. Behind the woman, many young men were looking at her back with admiration in their eyes. This woman was the deputy hall master of the Demon Palace, Chu Yun. This was a woman who had beauty, strength, ability, and means. She was all in one. She could be a femme fatale, but she could also be a demon king that countless people feared. Behind Chu Yun, there were all kinds of young men and women. Among them, there were more men and fewer women. Each of them had an outstanding temperament and emitted a powerful aura. And they were the core disciples representing the Demon Palace to participate in the exchange conference. Miss Yun, why isn't Elder Hua here yet? We've been waiting for half a day. Did something happen to Elder Hua? Seeing that Elder Hua hadn't arrived yet, some disciples couldn't help but worry. Don't you know Elder Hua's strength? Even I'm not his match. How could there be an accident? He went to look for Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, Chu Yun said indifferently. Are Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo really disciples of our Demon Palace? We've never seen them in the Demon Palace. A young woman looked at Chu Yun suspiciously. Yes. They are indeed disciples of our Devil Palace, but they were hidden by Elder Hua, so no one knows where they are. Chu Yun shook his head. I see. I heard that Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo seem to have comprehended a few types of law powers, but they don't seem to be very strong. I've heard of them as well. I don't think there's anything special about them other than their Dominator weapons. Why does Elder Hua value it so much? Everyone discussed in low voices. Their faces were filled with doubt and a hint of dissatisfaction. As people who could participate in the exchange, they were naturally the most outstanding core disciples of the Devil Halls. They had all heard of the deeds of Qin Feiyang and the madman, but they felt that they didn't live up to their reputation. Because if it were them, if they also had Dominator divine weapons, their abilities and methods would definitely be more outstanding than Qin Feiyang and the madman. Chu Yun ignored him. These people were all favored by the heavens and were born with an arrogant temperament. They never knew that there was always someone better than them in this world. Perhaps when Qin Feiyang and the madman came, they could be taught a lesson. Shua! Suddenly, 3 figures descended in the void not far away. It's Elder Hua. A group of core disciples immediately went up to welcome him. Sorry to keep you waiting. Elder Hua chuckled. No, no. Everyone waved their hands and then looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman. Similarly, the madman and Qin Feiyang were also sizing up these people. There were about 100 of them. The men had extraordinary temperaments, and the women were intelligent. All of them had reached the early stage Dominator realm. Unfortunately, almost everyone's face was filled with arrogance. How are the core disciples of our Devil Palace? Elder Hua asked with a smile. They still need to be polished. The madman grinned. Senior brother, what are you talking about? Qin Feiyang immediately stared at the madman. How could such words be said in public? With a single glance, one could tell that these people were a group of arrogant people. If such words were said, it would definitely cause them to be dissatisfied. As expected. Hearing the madman's words, the group of core disciples instantly opened their eyes wide in anger. Can't I speak the truth? The madman looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. Don't cause trouble. Qin Feiyang glared at him. All right, all right. The madman helplessly nodded his head. He then seriously sized up these core disciples and cupped his hands. This, everyone, just now, I spoke the truth without thinking. It's my fault. I apologize. I sincerely apologize to all of you. Actually, it's not an exaggeration to say that all of you are dragons and phoenixes that only appear once in 100 years. When a small character like me stands together with all of you, I can only look up to all of you. Sorry, sorry. Next time when I speak the truth, I will definitely think about it. The madman repeatedly apologized, appearing very sincere. However, Qin Feiyang's face became darker and darker. Chu Yun and Elder Hua's mouths were also twitching. As for the group of core disciples, many of them were already on the verge of exploding in anger. All of them were gnashing their teeth. Speak the truth. This was called an apology. He was clearly mocking them even more. Madman Mo, what are you being arrogant for? You're just a half-step dominator now. Someone spoke. The meaning was self-evident. You're just a half-step dominator, what right do you have to evaluate us geniuses? Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, sorry. I've really offended you. You're all magnanimous. Don't bicker with a country bumpkin like me. The madman continuously apologized with a fawning expression. However, the ridicule in his eyes was not concealed at all. What the hell? Isn't he just a core disciple of the Demon Palace? He had the right to be arrogant in front of others, but in front of him, he was nothing. Geniuses. Can you be more shameless? Alright, it's almost noon. The Sky Palace, Deity Palace, Blood Palace, and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance should have arrived. Let's go. Chu Yun spoke. If this continued, there would be a fire in the backyard before the exchange even started. After speaking, she waved her hand and a space-time crack opened. She took the lead and walked in. Humph. Let's wait and see. I want to see what you're capable of at the exchange. A young man coldly glanced at the madman Qin Feiyang before turning around and walking into the space-time crack. The others did the same. Before entering the space-time crack, they all glared at the madman Qin Feiyang. See, this is the trouble you've caused. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He was just a fish in the moat that was implicated. He didn't even say a word and he was already hated. Trouble? It doesn't exist. It's just a bunch of small fries who think they're all right. The madman's face was filled with disdain. Small fries? The corner of Elder Hua's mouth twitched as he coughed dryly. Kid, I'm still here. Can you consider my feelings? After all, they were the core disciples that they had carefully selected. Now, this kid actually said that they were a bunch of small fries. Wasn't this deliberately slapping his face? Is it true that you can't speak the truth? The madman frowned. All right. You're amazing. Back then, they didn't even need to show up. Just the two of you swept the core disciples of the Sky Hall, God Hall, and Blood Hall. Now, Elder Hua even felt a sense of relief. Fortunately, this little madman didn't stay in the Demon Hall. Otherwise, with his personality, he would definitely cause a ruckus in the Demon Hall. Can you not include me? I didn't say anything. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He glanced at the core disciples and whispered, "Where's the Hall Master? Didn't she come? It's enough with little Yun and me." Elder Hua smiled proudly. Then, among you core disciples, did you comprehend the strongest law? Qin Feiyang was curious. Make a guess. Elder Hua smiled mysteriously. How am I supposed to guess? Qin Feiyang was speechless. You'll know when the time comes. Elder Hua smiled. As they spoke, almost all of them entered the space-time crack. Elder Hua looked at the two of them and smiled, "Let's go." The two of them nodded and followed behind Elder Hua. They stepped into the space-time crack one after another. As for the fire dragon, the black dragon, and the fire one. The crow that the fire one transformed into stood on the madman's shoulder. Its pair of black eyes were rolling around. No one knew what it was thinking about. As for the fire dragon and the black dragon, one on the left and one on the right, they coiled around Qin Feiyang's wrist like two exquisite bracelets. Sky Cloud Island. Qin Feiyang and the madman were naturally familiar with each other. They also had a deep impression of the little rabbit. They had never seen a rabbit that loved to drink so much. Other people's spatial divine items were used to store treasures, but the little rabbit's spatial divine item was filled with wine. At this moment, above Sky Cloud Island, there were 5 islands floating. The islands weren't big, only about half a mile in diameter. They were like 5 wooden boats that surrounded Sky Cloud Island. The 5 islands were a certain distance away from Sky Cloud Island, about 100 miles apart. Furthermore, at the edge of each island, there was a stone tablet erected. Among them, on the western island, there were 2 words carved on the stone tablet. Blood Hall. On the northern island, there were 2 words carved on the stone tablet. On the southern island, there were 2 words carved on the stone tablet. In the east, there were 2 small islands. They were about a dozen miles apart from each other. One of the islands had the words, Demonic Hall, carved on it, while the other had the words, Rogue Cultivator Alliance, carved on it. These were the 5 forces that were participating in the exchange conference. At this moment, the Blood Hall, Sky Hall, Deity Hall, and the small island of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were all occupied. Only the small island of the Demon Hall was empty. This Demon Hall is really arrogant, making us wait for them here. On the Blood Hall's island, a young man in crimson clothes spoke as he stared at the empty island. His eyes were filled with hostility. There's nothing we can do about it. Who asked the Demon Hall to have 2 monstrous disciples now? There are rumors about Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo even in the southern continent. On the Deity Hall's island, a young man in white clothes spoke calmly. It's the same in the northern continent. They are the most talked about now. However, at the same time, there are rumors about the Blood Hall in the western continent. I heard that the Blood Hall chased them all the way to the eastern continent to kill them. What? The dignified Blood Hall can't deal with two inexperienced brats. A young man in black clothes from the northern continent's Sky Hall spoke as he stared at the people from the Blood Hall in the western continent. His eyes were filled with mockery. What did you say? The young man in crimson clothes from the Blood Hall raised his eyebrows. I'm just curious. If you don't like it, just pretend I didn't say anything. The young man in black clothes from the Sky Hall chuckled. The eyes of the young man in crimson clothes from the Blood Hall flashed coldly. However, the young man in black clothes from the Sky Hall didn't take it seriously at all. He even had a provocative look on his face. Regardless of whether it was the Sky Hall, Deity Hall, or Blood Hall, all of them closed their eyes and rested. They didn't say anything to stop it, as if they were giving tacit consent. Why is he only a half-step sovereign? He's not that strong. Their cultivation levels are not high, but I heard that they have sovereign divine weapons. The reason why the Devil Palace took such good care of them is because of this sovereign divine weapon. To put it simply, the Devil Hall is trying to curry favor with them. I see. I was wondering why they were following behind Elder Hua. It turns out that Elder Hua is protecting them. The disciples of the various major factions began to discuss in low voices. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy glanced at each other and scanned the crowd. Of course, they knew the people from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. As for the Heavenly Hall, Blood Hall, and Deities Hall, these three factions had about the same number of core disciples as the Devil Hall. There were about 100 of them, and they were all sovereigns. Finally, their gazes landed on the Blood Hall's island. They were naturally familiar with Old Hai. After all, he had chased them for so long. Next to Old Hai was a black-clothed youth with a cold expression. They were also familiar with this person. He was the Grand Deacon who had attacked them in the Heavenly Cloud Ocean. He was extremely powerful. Old Hai, Grand Deacon, haha, long time no see. How have you been? Frenzy laughed loudly. Yes. Long time no see. Seeing that all of you are doing so well, I am deeply gratified. Old Hai said with a fake smile. Thank you for your concern. However, you seem to be a little haggard. Have you encountered some problems? Tell me, seeing that you have taken care of us so much, should I help you come up with an idea? Frenzy laughed. A cold light flashed in Old Hai's eyes as he said with a smile, don't worry about my matters. You should pray for your own fortune. Alright, then let's see who will pray for their own fortune in the end. Qin Feiyang spoke with a sneer in his eyes. Then let's wait and see. Old Hai chuckled as a cold light surged in his eyes. The smell of gunpowder is even stronger than before. It seems that the Blood Hall and Qin Feiyang really have a deep grudge. However, what exactly is the conflict between them? How did two inexperienced little fellows offend the Blood Hall? When the leaders of the Heavenly Hall and Deities Hall saw this scene, they couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. Alright, let's go. Chu Yun waved her hand and led everyone to fly towards the small island. On the island, there were a few mountain ridges with lush vegetation. The group landed on a flat grassland. This is where we will be cultivating from now on. Remember this. No matter what grudges you have in private, you must not have internal strife during the exchange and embarrass our demonic hall. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Chu Yun looked at the group of disciples and said with a cold gaze. Yes. The group of disciples nodded. Alright then. The exchange will take a long time. You can arrange your own cave abodes first. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me and Elder Hua. After Chu Yun finished speaking, she looked at Qin Feiyang in frenzy and said, "The two of you, follow me." The two of them looked at each other suspiciously and followed Chu Yun to the other side. Elder Hua has already said the reason why you came to participate in the exchange. As for you all, you should also know that the Blood Hall has organized this exchange for you all. Therefore, unless there is no other choice, I will not allow you all to fight. You must also remember not to act recklessly. Wait and see. Chu Yun warned. Got it. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy nodded. Chu Yun continued, in addition, you must be prepared to expose your identity. After all, your power of law is too special. Once the Rogue Cultivator Alliance sees your power of law, they will probably guess your identity in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. We have already expected this. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Alright, hurry up and go cultivate. Every bit of improvement is still a bit. Chu Yun waved her hand. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned his head to glance at the island. This place was definitely not suitable for cultivation. Now that he had recovered his identity, there was no need to hide in the Black Tortoise world. Therefore, if he wanted to cultivate, it was better to go to the Black Tortoise world. After Chu Yun finished speaking, she walked to Elder Hua's side. It was unknown what they were discussing. Old Qin, are you really going to listen to that woman and wait and see? Frenzy suddenly spoke. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at Frenzy. He saw Frenzy looking at the core disciples of the Blood Hall as if he was about to make a move. What do you want? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. Since I'm here, I will definitely cause a ruckus. Otherwise, how would it be like my character? Frenzy chuckled. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he suddenly felt powerless. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have sensed something and turned his head to look at the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Hall's island were only 10 miles apart, so everything could be seen clearly. At this moment, the Vice Alliance leader was looking at him. Seeing Qin Feiyang looking over, the Vice Alliance leader smiled at Qin Feiyang, showing a trace of goodwill. Still acting. Frenzy also noticed the Vice Alliance leader, and a trace of disdain appeared in his eyes. If he wants to act, then let him act. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled and looked at the Vice Alliance leader. He smiled and said, Senior is the Vice Alliance leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Yes. The Vice Alliance leader nodded. Senior's name has long been like thunder to my ears. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm ashamed. I only hope that you're magnanimous and don't mind what happened in the past. The Vice Alliance leader waved his hands. It's all in the past, let's not talk about it. Where's Yi Tian? Why don't I see him? I haven't seen him since the last time we parted ways in Wind Sea City. Didn't he come? Qin Feiyang asked. No. Tian's cultivation is still shallow and he's not qualified to participate in such an exchange. The Vice Alliance leader shook his head. That's a pity. Although we were opponents in the battle in Wind Sea City, I can tell that he's a very good person. I really hope that I can become true friends with him in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled. After Tian returned, he often mentioned you and said that he admires you very much. Sigh. It's all my fault. If I hadn't been foolish and caused so much trouble, you and Tian would have become friends long ago. The Vice Alliance leader sighed, his face filled with self-blame. It's understandable for you to do that. After all, Wang Hui is a member of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Young friend, your magnanimity really makes me ashamed. If there's a chance in the future, you must come to our Rogue Cultivator Alliance as a guest. The Vice Alliance leader said sincerely. There will be a chance. Qin Feiyang smiled. Look at this, look at this. The Vice Alliance leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is actually trying to poach him in front of us. What a joke. After all, these two have sovereign weapons. The reason why the Rogue Cultivator Alliance has always been suppressed by our Demon Hall is because they don't have sovereign weapons. Originally, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance had a chance. Unfortunately, the Vice Alliance leader is muddle-headed. He actually gave the order to hunt them down for a small member. This is really like the saying, don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate. Not far away, a few Demon Hall disciples saw this scene and could not help but mock. What did you say? A disciple of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance stood out and glared at the few Demon Hall disciples. Qin Feiyang had some impression of this person. His name was Wang Quang. Yi Tian had introduced him to him before. He had mastered the law of force and the law of war. Am I wrong? Where did the Rogue Cultivator Alliance get the confidence to come to the exchange? Take a look for yourselves. Which of the four major forces here isn't stronger than you? You're just here to humiliate yourselves. The few Demon Hall disciples sneered. They did not care about the Rogue Cultivator Alliance at all. We can't go to Sky Cloud Island. Chu Yun said in a deep voice. I can't go. Qin Feiyang and Qin Haodong were puzzled. Why couldn't they go? Before the exchange began, that little rabbit had already made 3 rules with us. No one is allowed to enter Sky Cloud Island. If you go there now, it's equivalent to breaking the rules. The most important thing is to anger it. It won't do you any good, and it might even vent its anger on our demon palace. Chu Yun transmitted her voice. I see. The two of them suddenly understood. Madman grinned and said, it's fine. After saying that, the two of them turned around and disappeared into Sky Cloud Island. Chu Yun didn't even have time to stop them. They're quite bold. Sure enough, they can do whatever they want just because they have a sovereign weapon. However, even the major forces are quite afraid of that little rabbit, let alone the two of them. Just wait, there will definitely be a good show to watch later. Many people were gloating over his misfortune. Although they didn't know the identity and strength of the little rabbit, before coming to Sky Cloud Island, the major forces above had told them not to provoke it. This was enough to prove the little rabbit's status in Sky Cloud Sea. Hello, Master Rabbit. Madman began to wave his hand from afar. Ah! The little rabbit looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman in astonishment. Swoosh! The two of them landed on the stone. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, long time no see. It hasn't been long. I heard that the eastern continent is living quite well. The little rabbit smacked its lips while drinking wine. It's all thanks to you. If it weren't for your guidance, we might have run directly to the western continent. So in order to thank you, we specially brought some good wine when we came. Senior brother, quickly give it to Master Rabbit. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Okay. Madman waved his hand, and thousands of wine jars appeared in the void. There was the Heavenly Joy Pavilion specialty, Immortal Drunkenness, and the famous divine wine of the Eastern Continent, Heavenly Mountain Dew. Not bad, you two brats are very sensible. Looking at these wine jars, the little rabbit immediately beamed with joy. Ah! This is a bribe, right? That's not right. How did they know that this little rabbit likes to drink? Why did they prepare so much? Could it be that they know each other? Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment. This was too unexpected. Even Chu Yun and Elder Huo were dumbfounded. They knew that Qin Feiyang and Madman came from the lower realm. They also knew that the two of them must have seen the little rabbit before because this was the only way to come from the lower realm. However, they never expected that the two of them were so familiar with the little rabbit. Master Rabbit, it seems that you're quite bored drinking alone. Why don't we stay and accompany you? Madman chuckled and said. Accompany me? The little rabbit was stunned. It glanced at the people from the blood hall and said with a sinister smile, Brat, you're looking for a backer, right? Master Rabbit's eyes are really sharp. Madman bared his teeth. But you've found the right person. As long as you're in Master Rabbit's territory, the blood hall won't dare to touch you no matter how bold they are. The little rabbit said proudly. Awesome. Come, come, come. Let's get drunk today. Madman picked up a wine jar and drank it like a cow. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He really started drinking. Since it was already like this, he definitely had to do something. He also picked up a wine jar and drank a mouthful. Brother Rabbit, when the blood hall came, did you see this person? Madman's skill of getting close was getting better and better. After a while, he started to call him brother. After asking, he turned his back to everyone and took out a portrait. It was the portrait of the Sword Emperor. No. The little rabbit looked at the portrait and shook its head. No, Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. Did the blood hall bring the Sword Emperor or not? What? This person is your friend? The little rabbit was suspicious. To tell you the truth, this person is indeed our friend. Moreover, he's currently in the blood hall. This is also the reason why we came to participate in the exchange. Don't you think the blood hall is despicable? It's fine if they want to deal with us, but they actually used our friend to threaten us. Madman had a furious expression. If that's the case, then this exchange conference is a plot against you all. The little rabbit said. I really admire you, Brother Rabbit. You're able to get to the point in one go. What do you think we can do in the face of such a powerful blood hall? Brother Rabbit, we can be considered to have some friendship. You can't just watch us brothers die. The madman looked at the little rabbit pitifully, like a helpless little lamb. That's it. The little rabbit grinned and said, Uncle Rabbit really can't interfere because I've already made an agreement with them. Uncle Rabbit will only be the referee and won't ask about anything else. Sigh. Madman had a disappointed expression when he heard this and shook his head sadly, thinking about it, we're in the sky cloud domain. We're not familiar with the place and we're all alone. The only brother we know also didn't save him. How pitiful. The little rabbit's face darkened and said angrily, You're still acting with me. Although Uncle Rabbit has been staying in the Sky Cloud Island, I know all about your deeds in the Eastern Continent. How can the things you two have done be considered pitiful? I think the ones who are truly pitiful are those opponents who died in your hands. Ha! Madman laughed dryly and quickly twisted the wine jar, saying, Let's not talk about it. Come, 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 let's drink. What are they mumbling about? I really want to go over and take a look. Everyone mumbled. Old High's brows were tightly knitted together. Looking at this situation, could it be that when Qin Feiyang came to the Sky Cloud domain, he should have built a good relationship with this little rabbit? It was even possible that Qin Feiyang went to the Eastern Continent because of this little rabbit's hint. It seemed that this matter was more difficult than he imagined. They drank until midnight. Qin Feiyang and Madman finally left the Sky Cloud Island. When they returned to the island, Chu Yun immediately stopped the two of them. What are you doing in the middle of the night? I'm telling you, I'm a man who's taken, don't think about it. Madman smiled evilly. Chu Yun's face darkened, saying, Tell me the truth, how did you know that little rabbit? Are you stupid? This is the only way to go to the lower realm. We came from the lower realm, so we naturally know it. Madman looked down on them. Chu Yun said angrily, What I mean is, what methods did you use to be so close to it? You still don't admit that you're stupid, isn't it right in front of you? It's definitely wine. There's a good saying, if you want to get closer to someone, you have to cater to their interests, understand? The disdain in Madman's eyes became even stronger, making Chu Yun gnash her teeth in hatred. Alright, I won't talk nonsense with you, we're going to cultivate. Madman waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and immediately brought Madman to the Black Tortoise domain. Qin Feiyang was about to enter the cultivation room when Madman suddenly stopped him, saying, "Old Qin, I think we have to research a Peerless Divine Brew." Peerless Divine Brew? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and frowned, but we don't know how to brew wine. Madman's meaning was obvious. If they had a Peerless Divine Brew in their hands, then they could get closer to the little rabbit. We don't know, but there are so many people in the Black Tortoise domain, there must be someone who knows. Madman chuckled. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded, pondered for a moment, then closed his eyes and found Pi Lupi and Theta Wang. With a thought, the two of them appeared in the castle hall. Lord Ruler. The two of them were stunned and quickly bowed. I told you not to be so polite when you see me in the future, why can't you remember? Qin Feiyang was displeased. The two of them rubbed their heads and laughed dryly. Their respect for Qin Feiyang had long been ingrained in their bones, so it was almost impossible to erase. Chapter 32-26. Are there any famous brewmasters in our Black Tortoise world? Madman asked. Brewmaster? The two were slightly stunned. Why did he suddenly ask this? Don't tell me that there's no one in the Black Tortoise world that knows how to brew wine. Madman asked. Of course there is. But we don't understand. Lord Ruler, don't you dislike drinking wine? Why did you suddenly think of looking for a brewmaster? The two were puzzled. I have my own plans. How about this? Gather all the famous brewers together and have them work together to brew a Peerless Divine Brew. Qin Feiyang said. Peerless Divine Brew? The two looked at each other. That's right. It has to be a divine brew. As for what they need, the two of you will cooperate fully. In short, give them whatever they want. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. We will go and arrange it. The two respectfully responded and turned to leave. With these two helping us, it's quite easy for us. Madman smiled. Yes. The Fire Lotus was able to cultivate all these years thanks to their help. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's go and study the slaughter law together. Madman asked. Study the slaughter law? Aren't you in a hurry to study the death law? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Didn't they say that there was still one last step? Then they should strike while the iron is hot and quickly comprehend it. No hurry. Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was the first time he saw someone who wasn't in a hurry to comprehend the death law. Let's go. Madman turned and walked into the cultivation room. Qin Feiyang also followed with large strides. Their slaughter law had already reached the fourth profound. As long as they comprehended the fifth, Qin Feiyang would be able to break through to the early stage ruler realm. Once he reached the early stage ruler realm, he would have the confidence to sweep through the core disciples of the major factions. However, it was still far from enough to deal with giants like Old Sea. Because these giants all grasped a supreme profound. This was a huge hurdle. If he wanted to rely on his own strength to fight against these people, he would have to comprehend a supreme profundity. It would be best if it was the supreme profundity of the law of karma. Time flew by. 2 days passed outside. On the morning of the third day, the little rabbit walked out with a jug of wine in her hand. She stood at the peak of Sky Cloud Island and said, I've already cultivated for 3 days. It should be about time. Let's not waste any more time and quickly begin. As soon as these words were spoken, whether it was the various big shots or the disciples cultivating on the island, they all walked to the edge of the island and looked at the little rabbit. There are 2 rules for this exchange. The first is to stop when it's appropriate, which is just a simple exchange of pointers. The second is a battle of life and death. It's your choice. As for your opponents, it's up to you. In addition, in a battle of life and death, you can fight 1 against 2, 1 against 3. As long as you have the ability, you can even overturn the entire battlefield. Lastly, apart from the sovereign weapon, you are allowed to use everything you have. That's the rules. Let's begin. After the little rabbit finished speaking, she half lay on a rock nearby and drank wine while looking at the people from the various factions. As the little rabbit finished speaking, a muscular young man from the Wandering Cultivator Alliance took the first step forward. Wang Quang. The Vice Alliance leader was stunned and quickly said, "What are you doing? Don't you know that the bird that sticks out gets shot? Lord, this is our chance to defeat the Demon Hall, so the first battle must be between the Wandering Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Hall." Wang Quang thought. The Vice Alliance leader pondered for a moment and glanced at the people from the Demon Hall opposite him. He secretly said, "All right, be careful." Wang Quang nodded and looked at the little rabbit. "Lord, where is the battlefield?" "The entire sky cloud ocean is your battlefield," the little rabbit said indifferently. Whoosh! Wang Quang immediately stepped forward and landed in the air above the ocean. He pointed at a disciple of the Demon Hall and shouted, Do you dare to come out and fight to the death?" This disciple of the Demon Hall was one of the disciples who mocked the Wandering Cultivator Alliance 3 days ago. Fight to the death. And the first one is the Demon Hall. It seems that the Wandering Cultivator Alliance is prepared to use this exchange to defeat the Demon Hall. The other 3 forces muttered in their hearts. The core disciple of the Demon Hall had an ugly expression on his face. The other 3 forces didn't challenge them but chose to challenge the Demon Hall. Wasn't it obvious that they wanted to compete with the Demon Hall for the right to rule the Eastern continent? Go, you can only win, you can't lose. Chu Yun glanced at that disciple and shouted. Yes. That disciple responded and landed in front of Wang Quang with a cold smile on his face. Boom! Wang Quang's aura suddenly erupted. The surrounding void began to shatter, and the ocean below also surged with huge waves. However, he didn't see a single sea beast. Obviously, the sea beasts in this area had already left in advance. A mere Wandering Cultivator Alliance wants to turn the tables and become the ruler? What a joke! The Demon Hall disciple snorted coldly, and a monstrous aura also surged out. Boom! The 2 auras met in the void, and a violent wind instantly blew. Don't make it sound like your Demon Hall is very powerful. If it weren't for the sovereign divine weapon, my Wandering Cultivator Alliance might not be weaker than you. Wang Quang snorted coldly, and his body expanded with the wind, surrounded by the power of law. This was the law of force. The law of force's profundity was to strengthen the strength and power of the physical body. The first profundity, 100 feet tall divine body. The second profundity, 100 feet tall divine body. The third profundity, 10,000 feet tall divine body. The fourth profundity, 10,000 feet tall divine body. The fifth profundity, 100,000 feet tall divine body. The power of one's fist and palm could destroy the world. Wang Quang's divine body finally reached 100,000 feet tall. He was like an ancient giant in the sky above the ocean, and the invisible power turned into storms that swept in all directions. Die! Wang Quang roared, and his voice was like thunder, shaking the sky. Then, he stomped toward the Demon Hall disciple. Even if it was just a foot, the 100,000 feet tall divine body was still in existence like a mountain. The Demon Hall disciple was like a tiny ant in front of Wang Quang. When he stomped, it was as if a demon god had descended to the world. The void collapsed, and the world trembled. However, the Demon Hall disciple did not show any fear. Boom! A surge of law power appeared, turning into a huge tortoise shell in the sky. The tortoise shell was more than 10,000 feet tall, and it emitted a dazzling divine light. This was the law of earth. Wang Kuang stomped on the tortoise shell, but the shell did not show any signs of cracking, and it blocked this terrifying attack. This is the fifth profundity of the law of earth, the black tortoise shell. The black tortoise shell is known to have the strongest defense among all the law profundities. One has infinite strength, and the other has absolute defense. This battle will definitely be very exciting. Everyone was looking forward to it. Only the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Hall looked very serious. This was the first battle of the exchange, and it was also the first real battle between the core disciples of the Demon Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Therefore, no matter what, they could not lose. If Wang Kuang lost, it would undoubtedly be a fatal blow to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, which was already the weaker side. It might even affect the fighting spirit and performance of the following disciples. If the Demon Hall disciple lost, it would be a great humiliation to the Demon Hall. Wang Kuang and the Demon Hall disciple naturally knew this, so they went all out. Boom! Crack! The two sides continued to collide. Even the void here had been smashed into chaos. Wang Kuang's fist was bleeding, and the black tortoise shell of the Demon Hall disciple was gradually shattering. It has already begun. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and Madman appeared and walked to Elder Hua's side, looking at Wang Kuang and the Demon Hall disciple. Yes. Elder Hua nodded. What is that? Madman stared at the black tortoise shell. The fifth profundity of the law of earth, the black tortoise shell. To be able to shatter the black tortoise shell with one punch after another, the law of force is indeed extraordinary. Elder Hua muttered. The law of force, the law of earth, then they have met their match. Madman's eyes were filled with playfulness. What else can you do besides hiding behind that shell? Watch me shatter your shell now. Wang Kuang roared, and like an ancient giant ape, he threw a punch at the cracked black tortoise shell with an imposing aura. With a loud bang, the Xuanwu tortoise shell finally shattered, and Wang Kuang's fist was also split open, revealing his white bones. Puff! Both of them spat out a mouthful of blood. Law of War, 5th level battle intent. Wang Kuang roared, and a monstrous battle intent burst out of his body. Although his body was injured, under the support of the battle intent, he was like a god of war, brave and unstoppable. Immediately after, he threw another punch at the Demon Hall disciple, and wherever his fist passed, strong winds howled and tore apart the surroundings. Do you really think that I only know how to defend? The Demon Hall disciple snorted coldly, and waves of sword light flew out. The sword light was like countless blades intertwined, emitting a sharp aura that could destroy the world. This is the fifth profundity of the law of sword, Raging Dragon. Elder Hua knew that Qin Feiyang and Madman were unaware of many of the fifth profundity, so he explained in a low voice. As soon as Elder Hua finished speaking, the sword chi surged forward, turning into a huge divine dragon that smashed towards Wang Kuang's fist. Boom! When the two collided, a dazzling divine light erupted, and heaven and earth lost their color. In the next moment, the huge dragon formed by the sword chi actually let out a sorrowful cry and collapsed on the spot. The Demon Hall disciple retreated, and blood flowed out of his mouth. Wang Kuang's fist, including his arm, shattered upon impact. His face was deathly pale. However, Wang Kuang was supported by the fifth-level battle intent of the law of war, so he didn't feel pain or fatigue at all. He raised his other arm and threw another punch at the Demon Hall disciple. Every power of law had its own advantages. For example, the law of sword was invincible. For example, the law of force was invincible in terms of physical body and strength. The advantage of the law of war was that it could give a person endless fighting spirit. In other words, the law of war was a strengthening of the mind. Not only had Wang Kuang activated the law of force to strengthen his physical body and strength, but he had also activated the law of war to strengthen his mind and will. He was equivalent to a fearless battle machine. Chapter 32:27. When Wang Kuang's fist landed, the invisible force surged like a torrent. The aura of the death god enveloped the demon hull disciple. Black tortoise shell. The demon hull disciple roared. The black tortoise shell appeared and blocked Wang Kuang's fist. Clang! When the fist landed on the shell, it was as if it had landed on a shield made of divine metal, causing a deafening explosion. At the same time, the demon hull disciple waved his other hand and the law of sword surged out, turning into a raging dragon that pounced at Wang Kuang's legs. Ah! Wang Kuang immediately screamed in pain. After all, the raging dragon was the fifth profound of the law of sword. Although Wang Kuang had activated the fifth profound of the law of force and his physical body was extremely strong, he couldn't take it all. Both his legs were lacerated and blood splattered everywhere. Their blood dyed the sky red. I am the god of war. I am immortal. Shatter for me. Wang Kuang roared, as if he didn't feel the pain of his legs being torn apart. He raised his fist and punched at the black tortoise shell again. He was like a wild beast, exuding a valiant aura that made the scalps of the spectators go numb. He was simply a battle maniac. With another loud clang, the black tortoise shell shattered on the spot. Wang Kuang's fist also cracked and blood flowed out, but he didn't care. He didn't even frown as he punched at the demon hull disciple. Do you think you're the only one who has grasped the law of force? The demon hull disciple roared and took a step back. His body also began to expand. However, in an instant, another 100,000 feet tall giant appeared. This is his third law of force, the Vice Alliance leader mumbled. He then looked at Wang Kuang and muttered, do your best. You can definitely do it. After the demon hull disciple activated the fifth profound of the law of force, he also punched at Wang Kuang with extreme strength. I didn't expect you to also comprehend the law of force. However, it's useless. I also have an absolute defense. Wang Kuang sneered as a new law of force appeared. The law of earth. The demon hull disciple frowned. That's right. The fifth profound, black tortoise shell. Wang Kuang roared as the Xuanwu tortoise shell appeared, instantly blocking in front of him. The fist of the devil hull disciple landed on the tortoise shell, exploding forth with a shocking might. Amazing! Qin Feiyang muttered. Yeah. Originally, I thought we were pretty strong. But now that I've seen them, I've realized that we're really not as strong as them. Madman nodded. Don't worry. Once you comprehend the fifth profundity of the laws of death, even if you can't defeat them, you'll at least be able to put up a fight. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Although the law of death was stronger than the other laws, the difference in cultivation couldn't be ignored. Even if the madman had comprehended the fifth profundity of the law of death, he would only be an initial ruler. There was still a gap of a minor realm between him and a minor ruler. In the sovereign realm, the difference of a single minor realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Can you stop talking about me? You have to work hard too. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. I work hard. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Then, he shook his head and smiled. Yeah, you should continue to work hard. This fellow still didn't know that he had comprehended the fifth profundity of the law of karma. Otherwise, he would be hopping mad. Bang! Bang! Rumble! Wang Kuang and the demon palace disciple had transformed into giants that were 100,000 feet tall. They fought wildly, causing the sky to darken and blood to flow. They both had the law of force and the law of earth. The only difference was the law of war and the law of sword. The law of sword was also a pure offensive law. As for the law of war, it could be considered a support-type law. Therefore, they both had their own advantages. Wang Quang had the law of war. No matter how serious his injuries were, he didn't care. The more he fought, the braver he became. However, his offensive power was slightly inferior. As for the Demon Palace disciple, he had the law of sword. His offensive power was much stronger than Wang Quang's, but his willpower and mental power were weaker. If the battle ended quickly, the Demon Palace disciple would definitely win. However, if the battle dragged on, the Demon Palace disciple would definitely lose. This was because the pain caused by every exchange of blows would deepen his exhaustion and weakness. He couldn't fight like Wang Quang, who didn't know fatigue and pain. Even if he lost an arm or a leg, Wang Quang would still be lively. As expected. After an hour of battle, the Demon Palace disciple was sent flying by Wang Quang's punch. Half of his body had almost been shattered. Wang Quang's situation wasn't much better. His 100,000 feet tall body was riddled with wounds that were so deep that his bones could be seen. He was completely covered in blood. This was basically caused by the law of sword. If it were anyone else, they would have fainted long ago. However, he was still full of energy. There wasn't the slightest hint of fatigue between his brows. His fighting spirit was soaring. This was the law of war. The representative of protracted battles. It could be said that at the same cultivation level and with the same means, the person who had grasped the law of war could be considered invincible. Unless you could crush him like crushing dry weeds. The Demon Palace disciple is only a so-so. Wang Quang laughed loudly. Don't be impudent. The battle isn't over yet. The Demon Palace disciple got up. The law of Earth's fifth profundity, the black tortoise shell. The law of Sword's fifth profundity, the raging dragon. The two profundities roared in the sky, carrying an apocalyptic aura as they charged toward Wang Quang. Clang! Wang Quang waved his hand and activated the law of Earth. He grabbed the black tortoise shell and blocked in front of him. Boom! The Demon Palace disciple's black tortoise shell and the raging dragon collided with the black tortoise shell in Wang Quang's hand. Wang Quang's body shook as he spat out blood. The black tortoise shell in his hand also shattered. Roar! He let out a bestial roar as his 100,000 feet tall body leaned forward. It was almost as if his body was supporting the black tortoise shell. His body was also cracking inch by inch. Kill him! The Demon Palace disciple roared. His body was already collapsing to the ground. Obviously, this was his final attack. Boom! Crack! Although the black tortoise shell focused on defense, it also had lethality. Coupled with the law of Sword's fifth profundity, its lethality had undoubtedly risen to another level. In less than 5 breaths of time, the black tortoise shell in Wang Quang's hand shattered. The black tortoise shell and the dragon formed by the sword chi smashed into his chest. Puff! Wang Quang spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. His chest had also been pierced through by the dragon formed by the sword chi, leaving behind a huge blood puppet. Blood gushed out like a waterfall. This should be a lose-lose situation. Someone muttered. No. There won't be a lose-lose situation. At this moment, the one who has the fighting spirit and will to fight is the winner. And now, the one who has the fighting spirit and will to fight is Wang Quang. Someone else spoke. Just as expected. Wang Quang, who was sent flying, had a dazzling light in his eyes. This battle concerns the dignity of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. I must not lose. He roared as he stepped into the void and forcefully stabilized his body. The fighting spirit formed by the law of war roared around him. Following that, his entire body was like a violent dragon as he charged towards the Devil Hall disciple. His hands were shattered, but he still had his feet. When he reached the top of the Demon Palace disciple, he immediately stomped his foot on the Demon Palace disciple's head. No, the Demon Palace disciple roared. Now, he no longer had the strength to fight. That was because the two profound divine abilities from before were already his limit. However, Wang Kuang remained unmoved. His mountain-like foot directly landed on the head of the Devil Hall's disciple. With a loud crack, the Demon Palace disciple's head shattered. A divine light shot out from the shattered head. It was the Demon Palace disciple's divine soul. Trying to escape. Wang Kuang smiled sinisterly and stomped his foot again. Have mercy. Elder Hua could no longer sit still and hurriedly shouted. However, Wang Kuang was still unmoved. His eyes emitted monstrous killing intent as he stomped on the divine soul. With another scream, the divine soul of the Demon Palace disciple was annihilated on the spot. We won. At this moment, the members of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance couldn't help but clench their fists. Their Rogue Cultivator Alliance had actually won. Although the truth was right in front of them, they still felt like they were dreaming. They had actually defeated the Demon Palace disciple and won the first round. The members of the Demon Palace fell silent. They never expected to lose the first round to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. This was a disgrace. Vice Alliance Leader, Hall Master, Great Elder, I won. Wang Kuang was still standing in the void tenaciously. Looking at the Vice Alliance Leader and the others, a smile appeared on his blood-stained face. We won. It's been hard on you. The Vice Alliance Leader and the other two leaders were also very excited. Next, it's up to you guys. Wang Kuang looked at the disciples and said before falling straight down. When the law of war and the law of force disappeared, he immediately fainted. His 100,000 feet tall body also returned to normal. He was covered in injuries and could be described as a tragic sight. Quick! The Vice Alliance Leader shouted. The Great Elder came back to his senses and immediately stepped out to catch the falling Wang Kuang. He took out a divine life pill and stuffed it into Wang Kuang's mouth. Following that, the Great Elder began to check on Wang Kuang's injuries. If he didn't look, he wouldn't know. Fortunately, Wang Kuang had the law of war to protect his body. Otherwise, he would have died long ago. He carried Wang Kuang, looked at the people of the Demon Palace, and returned to the small island. How is it? The Vice Alliance Leader and the Hall of Famers asked. His life is saved, but his vitality is greatly injured. I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to recover in a short period of time. The Great Elder said. It's good that he can keep his life. The Vice Alliance Leader heaved a sigh of relief, looked at the Hall of Famers, and said, Old Chi, set up a time array and let him recuperate inside. All right. The Hall of Famers nodded, then carried Wang Kuang and left. With the time array, the speed of recovery would be faster. Then, the Vice Alliance Leader looked at Elder Hua and Chu Yun, and laughed. It seems that the disciples of my Rogue Cultivator Alliance are still better. Elder Hua and Chu Yun frowned. He really didn't hide his flaunting. The other disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance also began to hold their heads high and puff out their chests. Wang Kuang's victory not only gave the Vice Alliance Leader and the other three big shots a sigh of relief, it also gave these disciples confidence. It turned out that the Demon Palace was not invincible. Chapter 32-28. How exciting. I never thought that the dignified Demon Hall would lose to a Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Could it be that the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is the overlord of the Eastern Continent? An ear-piercing laughter sounded. Elder Hua, Chu Yun, and the 100 or so disciples of the Demon Hall immediately looked in the direction of the voice. They saw Elder Hai standing in the front row with a brilliant smile on his face. It's just a battle, what can it mean? Elder Hua said indifferently. Is this just a battle? Ask everyone here, who doesn't understand the meaning of this battle. Could it be that in your eyes, this is just a game? Elder Hai didn't hide the ridicule on his face. Elder Hua's eyes darkened. The group of disciples behind him was also furious. However, with Elder Hai's status and identity, they didn't dare to curse. They only dared to be angry but didn't dare to say anything. Ayaya. Let me see, where did this old dog come from? Suddenly, an exceptionally loud voice rang out. Everyone was stunned and looked in the direction of the voice. It turned out to be Madman. This fellow was indeed worthy of being a lawless person. He directly scolded in front of everyone. The core disciples of the demon hall couldn't help but admire him at this moment. Madman pretended to look for a while, then looked at Elder Hai and said, "So it's you, old dog, I was wondering who it was." Elder Hai's eyes suddenly turned cold and were filled with shocking killing intent. "You're still glaring at me? Look at your eyes, they're exactly the same as a dog's eyes." Madman's face was filled with disdain. As soon as he said that, it immediately caused everyone to burst into laughter. Especially the disciples of the demon hall, they laughed happily. Even Elder Hua and Chu Yun couldn't help but laugh. "Kid, you haven't died before, right? How dare you talk to Elder Hai like that?" A purple-clothed youth jumped out and glared at Madman. Madman glanced at the purple-clothed youth and said disdainfully, "Is there something wrong with your head?" The purple-clothed youth was stunned. "If there's nothing wrong with your head, why would you say such stupid words? If I've died before, would I be standing here talking to you? Idiot." Madman rolled his eyes. The purple-clothed youth was so angry that he trembled. What kind of logic was this? Wasn't it just a sentence? Why are you being so serious? The old are fools, and the young are idiots. Alas, your blood hall is truly hopeless. Madman shook his head. "Bastard, I want to fight you." The purple-robed youth took a step forward and glared at the madman. "You." Madman sized up the purple-robed young man and chuckled. "Back then, that old dog by your side and the Grand Deacon by your side came with 3 sovereign divine weapons, but they couldn't stop us. Little punk like you. Go play in the mud." The purple-robed young man's body was trembling, and his nose was crooked from anger. At this moment, another young man walked out and stood next to the purple-robed young man. He looked at the madman and said, "You also know that that's only if you have a sovereign weapon. However, the rules of the exchange clearly state that the use of sovereign weapons is prohibited." "Rules? I'm not even afraid of your blood hall. Do you think I'll care about a mere rule? You don't believe me when I say you're stupid." Madman sneered. The people of the blood hall immediately became restless. With what Qin Feiyang and the madman had done over the years, they might really take out their sovereign weapons and kill them. Old Hai's eyes couldn't help but darken. He looked at the little rabbit and asked, "Do the rules you set still count?" The little rabbit glanced at the madman and then at Old Hai. Uncle Rabbit's words naturally count. Old Hai let out a sigh of relief. The little rabbit looked at the madman and said, "Don't break the rules. Otherwise, don't say that Uncle Rabbit didn't give you face. Since Uncle Rabbit said so, what else can I do?" The madman grinned. To be honest, the madman really didn't care about the rules. With his personality, if he really angered the little rabbit, it would be useless even if he had it. At most, he would just have one more enemy. What was there to be afraid of? Of course. It hadn't reached that point yet, so there was no need to go against the little rabbit. Enough. The first battle is over. Let's continue. The little rabbit said indifferently and continued to drink. Madman Mo, good job. I suddenly realized that you're quite pleasing to the eye. Let's be friends. The core disciples of the demon hall surrounded the madman. Do I need you to be pleasing to the eye? The madman didn't buy it. Weren't they just a bunch of people with decent talent? Who were they putting on an arrogant attitude for? The disciples' faces darkened. They were really getting carried away. Madman Mo, do you dare to accept my challenge? On the other side, the purple-clothed youth from the blood hall shouted. I told you to go play in the mud. Don't you understand? The madman frowned. The purple-clothed youth chuckled and said mockingly, I think you don't dare. I don't dare. The madman raised his eyebrows. Yeah. I think you can only train your mouth. What a joke. You don't even dare to accept the challenge of a mere half-step sovereign. Is this what a disciple of the demon hall is like? I think it's time for the overlord of the eastern continent to change. The purple-clothed youth smiled. Half-step sovereign. The madman was stunned. Qin Feiyang was also surprised. Previously, they really didn't pay attention to the cultivation of the purple-clothed youth. This included the others. Because they were all amused by the madman and didn't pay attention to the strength of the purple-clothed youth. But now that they looked carefully, he really was a half-step sovereign. A half-step sovereign also came to join in the fun. Senior brother, you can't be careless. Qin Feiyang walked to the madman's side and whispered. What do you mean? The madman was suspicious. A half-step sovereign came to participate in the exchange conference and kept shouting. There's only one possibility. He definitely has something to rely on. Qin Feiyang messaged. That's true. The madman nodded. Are you coming or not? Qin Feiyang, why don't you come? The purple-clothed youth looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled but didn't say anything. Huh, so it's just two idiots. The purple-clothed youth shook his head and laughed. The other core disciples of the blood hall couldn't help but laugh. I'll fight with you. Suddenly, a black-clothed youth walked out from the group of core disciples and locked his gaze on the purple-clothed youth. You. The purple-clothed youth glanced at the black-clothed youth and shook his head. I'm not interested in you. You don't dare. The black-clothed youth sneered. You have the nerve to say this? A low-stage sovereign challenging a half-step sovereign, can you be any more shameless? The purple-clothed youth had a mocking expression. Hearing this, the black-clothed youth's expression froze. The purple-clothed youth ignored the black-clothed youth and looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. I came to participate in the exchange conference because of you two. Because of us? Qin Feiyang was stunned. I heard that you two are very powerful in the eastern continent, so I wanted to see just how powerful you two are. But now that I see it, it's really not as good as the rumors. The purple-clothed youth shook his head. At this moment, no one from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the Sky Hall, or the Divine Hall stepped out to challenge them. They were all looking at Qin Feiyang and the madman with a playful expression. This was because the big shots of the various forces all knew clearly that the reason the Blood Hall had organized this exchange conference was to deal with Qin Feiyang and madman. At the same time, the Sky Hall and the Divine Hall's leaders were also interested in Qin Feiyang and the madman, so they were all waiting to watch the show. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, Elder Hua looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and said, Come back. Let's go. Qin Feiyang pulled the madman and turned around to leave. Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, if you two don't agree, then I'll chop off one of the Sword Emperor's arms first. But at this moment, a sinister laugh suddenly sounded in their minds. What? The two of them stiffened and turned to look at Elder Hai at the same time because the person who sent them the voice transmission was Elder Hai. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. The Sword Emperor is in my spatial divine item. If I want to kill him, it'll be as easy as crushing an ant. Elder Hai thought. When Qin Feiyang and the madman heard this, killing intent surged in their eyes and they couldn't help but clench their fists. What's going on? Chu Yun looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman in surprise. There's a problem. Elder Hua looked at the two of them, then looked at Elder Hai and thought, it must be this old thing secretly threatening them. When Chu Yun heard this, she immediately stepped forward and stopped Qin Feiyang and the madman. She transmitted her voice, "Don't be rash. If you two agree now, even if you defeat them, they will still continue to challenge you." Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. "Trust me, I'll help you," Chu Yun thought. "Sure, the Sword Emperor is an Elder Hai's spatial divine item. Help us rescue him now." The madman transmitted his voice. "It's inside his spatial divine object." Chu Yun was stunned. "That's right. He just said it himself." The madman said. "This," Chu Yun hesitated. "We can't do it, right? So we have to rely on ourselves. And right now, we have no choice." The madman took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. "Do you want to go first, or should I?" "Up to you." Qin Feiyang shrugged his shoulders. "Then I'll go first." The madman chuckled and took a step forward and landed in the sky above the sea on the left. He accepted the challenge. The eyes of the powerhouses of the various forces lit up. The core disciples below also had expressions of anticipation. What kind of method would this person use? "Feiyu, don't show mercy. Let him know the power of our blood hall." "That's right. Torture him well and let him experience a life worse than death." The core disciples of the blood hall looked at the purple-clothed youth and roared at the same time. "Don't worry, I'll let him deeply understand the power of our blood hall." The purple-clothed youth smiled proudly, then took a step forward and walked over to the madman. Sigh. Elder Hua and Chu Yun looked at each other and couldn't help but sigh. They had already expected that the blood hall would force the two of them to make a move, but they didn't expect it to come so quickly. They really couldn't wait to deal with the two of them on the first day. Chapter 32-29. The purple-clothed youth landed in front of Madman and smiled. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Jiang Feiyu, the #1 genius of the Blood Hall." "Ah." Madman was stunned. Why was it another self-proclaimed monstrous genius? Were all the youths of the Sky Cloud domain so self-righteous? Did I say anything when I grasped 6 types of law force? What about you? I don't believe you don't have a name. Jiang Feiyu looked at Madman. Are you here to fight? Or to make friends? Did you come to the wrong place? Madman was speechless. Jiang Feiyu was stunned and nodded. "All right, since you're going to die soon, your name isn't important. Say it, are we going to stop here or fight to the death? I really don't know where you find your confidence from." Madman had a helpless expression. He had never seen such an arrogant person, especially in front of him. Confidence comes from strength. "Hurry up, are we going to stop here or fight to the death?" Jiang Feiyu said. "What do you think?" Madman chuckled. "Seems like we have the same idea, fight to the death." Jiang Feiyu chuckled. Laugh to your heart's content because you won't be able to laugh soon." Madman bared his teeth. Haha, Jiang Feiyu raised his head and laughed, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "A battle between half-step sovereigns, I hope it'll be interesting." The little rabbit muttered, and then shouted, "Since we've already decided to fight to the death, then bystanders are not allowed to interfere. Let's begin." "Right, little crazy brat, have that crow on your shoulder leave the battlefield." The crow that the Fire One transformed into had been lying on Madman's shoulder. It had the cultivation of a perfect sovereign. If it suddenly attacked Jiang Feiyu when Madman and Jiang Feiyu were fighting, would there be any meaning in continuing the battle? Because it would be an instant kill. "Go." Madman patted the Fire One's head. The Fire One immediately spread its wings and turned into a stream of light that landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. "Then let's begin." Killing intent flashed in Jiang Feiyu's eyes. Boom! At almost the same time, the auras released by the two collided like two invisible dragons. Woo woo. A gust of wind suddenly blew in the void here, and a destructive wave surged in all directions with an earth-shattering force. The madman's gaze turned cold, and he said, "Divine arts, divine artifacts, don't use these fancy things. Just directly activate the energy of the laws. As you wish. Open your eyes wide and see what a real monster is." Jiang Feiyu's arrogance shot through the sky. A wave of heavenly thunder rolled out and turned into a 10,000-meter-long thunder dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards the madman. Law of lightning. The madman was slightly taken aback. His body trembled as he also released a 10,000-foot-long lightning dragon. Ding! Accompanied by a series of dragon roars, the two lightning dragons collided with a loud bang, and all directions were destroyed. You dare to take out a mere third profound, thunder's fury. The madman smiled savagely and pointed at the sky. Tribulation clouds gathered, and in an instant, the sky above turned into lightning. He shouted, "Fourth profound, 9 heavens divine thunder." Crack! Following a series of deafening booms, countless bolts of lightning flashed, and a destructive aura enveloped an area of tens of millions of miles. I didn't expect that not only did you comprehend the law of lightning, but you've also comprehended the fourth profound. Jiang Feiyu laughed loudly. With a point of his index finger, more tribulation clouds gathered in the sky. It was also the fourth profound. At this moment, the 9 heavens divine thunder summoned by the two madly collided in the sky, killing each other. Could the fifth profound that this person grasped also be the law of lightning? Qin Feiyang looked at the sky, his eyes flickering. If that was the case, then there was no suspense in this battle. Because the madman also grasped the law of death. Unless the other party also grasped an ultimate law like the law of death, no matter how hard they tried, they wouldn't be a match for the madman. The two profound collided, and they were almost evenly matched. After all, with the same cultivation and same profound, it was hard to tell who was better. Just when everyone thought that the two would activate their fifth profound, Jiang Feiyu waved his hand, and a monstrous killing intent appeared. Law of slaughter. What does this mean? Why did he activate the law of slaughter? Could it be that the fifth profound he grasped isn't the law of lightning, but the law of slaughter? Everyone was suspicious. My talent can't be compared to yours. Jiang Feiyu looked at the madman with contempt and shouted, "For profound, come out for me." The first profound, sword of slaughter, the second profound, sword of slaughter. The third profound, killing intent domain. The fourth profound, 10,000 dragons god slaying. The 4 profound meanings had all appeared. This sea area was directly shrouded by the killing intent of the 4 profound, as if it had turned into an Azura hell. Especially the 4th profound, 10,000 blood dragons roared in the sky, and one could vaguely see a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Kill! Jiang Feiyu waved his hand, and the 4 profound suddenly turned into a torrent that charged at the madman. Looking at this scene, the madman wanted to laugh instead. This person played so many tricks just to show off his law of slaughter in front of everyone. Back in the Hall of the Exalted, Mu Ziyu also showed off in front of him, and now Jiang Feiyu did it again. He really couldn't understand, what was there to show off? Since that was the case, then he might as well fulfill his wish. Boom! Accompanied by the sound of thunder, the madman still used the 4 profound of the law of lightning. Is that all you've got? Jiang Feiyu was stunned. I don't like to do these useless things. If you want to perform, then perform. The madman raised the corner of his mouth with a hint of mockery. But Jiang Feiyu didn't care at all. Boom! The 4 profound divine abilities collided, and it ended in a draw again. How boring. I thought you had a lot of law of slaughter. Jiang Feiyu shook his head in disappointment. Continue. The madman took a step back and simply put his hands behind his back, watching this person perform. Your attitude really pisses me off. Jiang Feiyu raised his eyebrows, and a wave of law of slaughter surged out. This was the law of sword. The law of lightning, the law of slaughter, the law of sword, these three laws were all comprehended by Feiyu when he was in the imperishable stage. His talent can be said to be number one in the history of our blood hall. A mere madman Mo is simply an ant-like existence in front of him. The core disciples of the blood hall couldn't help but mock. Comprehending three laws at the imperishable stage gives him the right to be arrogant. Fortunately, Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui aren't here. Otherwise, they would definitely laugh their heads off. When the disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance heard this, they couldn't help but secretly despise them. Although the vice leader colluded with the blood hall, the disciples below didn't know about it, so in the eyes of these disciples, they were more hostile towards the blood hall. Of course. As for the situation with Qin Feiyang and Mo Wuji, they didn't dare to say it in public. After all, the higher-ups had given them a strict order. Clang! Waves of sword qi enveloped all directions. However, Jiang Feiyu's law of sword had only activated the third profound. In other words, his law of sword had only comprehended the third profound. That's it? The madman looked at him in astonishment. Isn't that enough? Jiang Feiyu raised his eyebrows. 3 laws? I thought you had mastered 5 or 6 types of laws. What are you being so arrogant for? If you're considered a monstrous genius, then our demon hall, no, the entire eastern continent, everyone is a monstrous genius. The madman was speechless. That's right. What's there to be proud of with just 3 laws? Apart from the blood hall, the people from the other forces had a disdainful look on their faces. Is that really the only thing? However, Qin Feiyang revealed a suspicious look. This was because he had been observing the core disciples of the blood hall. These people's expressions revealed their absolute confidence in Jiang Feiyu. If that was the case, they definitely wouldn't trust Jiang Feiyu so much. Moreover, such talent wasn't enough to be called the number 1 core disciple of the blood hall. This person should be hiding other laws. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Feiyu stared at the madman, but he wasn't angry. On the contrary, the mockery on his face became thicker. Crack! Clang! The 4 profound meanings of the law of slaughter and the law of thunder appeared one after another. In addition to the 3 profound meanings of the law of sword, they immediately attacked the madman. The madman dodged again and again. It seemed very intense, but it didn't cause any damage to the madman at all. All the profound abilities blasted into the sea below. Have you performed yet? The madman stopped in the void, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and looked at Jiang Feiyu with a playful look. Haha, Jiang Feiyu raised his head and laughed again. That contemptuous look was as if he was looking at a clown. Are you addicted to laughing? The madman began to feel annoyed. What a hateful face. I'll definitely beat him up later. If that's all, can I be called the number 1 core disciple of the blood hall? Kid, I will let you broaden your horizons now. Jiang Feiyu laughed arrogantly, and the power of 2 laws suddenly surged out. Law of war. And the other is, what? This is, the madman's eyes trembled suddenly. The other law was black and gray, exuding a strong aura of death, as if the god of death had arrived. This is actually the law of death. The madman's face was full of disbelief. This person actually comprehended the law of death. At the same time, Qin Feiyang was also very surprised. This was really unexpected. Law of death, law of slaughter, law of war, law of thunder, law of sword, this Jiang Feiyu's talent was absolutely top-notch. This number 1 core disciple of the blood hall really wasn't bragging. At the same time, The giants and disciples of the various forces all had a look of shock on their faces. Not to mention the other 4 laws, just the law of death was one of the strongest laws. In the sky cloud realm, there was a saying. Anyone who comprehended the strongest law, even if it was only one kind of law, as long as they didn't die prematurely, they would definitely become an overlord of the sky cloud realm in the future. Just like the giants of the various super forces, they each mastered one kind of law. This was also the reason why the Rogue Cultivator Alliance attached so much importance to Qin Feiyang and the Madman. They really didn't expect that the Blood Hall would give birth to such a terrifying monster. Chapter 3230. Huh, are you scared? Compared to me, who do you think you are? Jiang Feiyu laughed arrogantly, as if he had lost his sense of measure. I'm sure it's okay. Madman nodded. What? Just okay. Kid, you don't know what you're capable of. How dare you say such words? Jiang Feiyu looked at Madman with contempt. Are you really stupid? This is a battle, not a competition of talent. Can you win just by comparing talent? If you want to win, it depends on your strength. Madman despised. Strength? The 4th profound of the law of slaughter, the 3rd profound of the law of sword, the 3rd profound of the law of war, the 2nd profound of the law of death, the law of thunder, the 5th profound, and you dare to talk about strength with me? Is my strength not enough? Haha, Jiang Feiyu laughed. The law of death is only the 2nd profound. Madman was stunned. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. It was only the 2nd profound. What qualifications did he have to be arrogant? One must know that Madman had already comprehended the 4th profound. Jiang Feiyu's talent was indeed 1 in a million in the sky cloud realm, and he indeed had the qualifications to be arrogant. However, he had found the wrong opponent. There were so many genius disciples from various forces, and he didn't pick anyone but Madman. Wasn't this asking for humiliation? Still not convinced. Jiang Feiyu looked at Madman, and the ridicule on his face became thicker. I'm convinced, Madman nodded. Then kneel down and beg for mercy, and I will spare your life. Jiang Feiyu laughed proudly. Ah! Madman looked at him in shock and laughed. I think you misunderstood me. When I said I was convinced by your pretentious behavior, not your strength. Jiang Feiyu raised his eyebrows and sneered, pretending to be calm. What's the point? I'm pretending to be calm. Madman was angry and wanted to laugh. This person really had a lot of talent, but he didn't have a brain at all. In fact, people like Jiang Feiyu weren't stupid. It was just that because his talent was too good, he was often pursued and praised, which led to his arrogant personality. He didn't put anyone in his eyes and felt that he was invincible. This was a typical dandy. In their eyes, other than themselves, everyone else was trash. Whoosh! Suddenly, Madman turned to look at Old C. The disdain in Old High's eyes was undisguised. Old Dog High, you're actually willing to let such a genius participate in the exchange. Aren't you afraid that he'll die halfway? The Madman looked at him playfully. Do you have the ability? Old High sneered. Haha, Madman couldn't help but raise his head and laugh when he heard this. Qin Feiyang looked at Elder Hua and asked, losing such a monstrous genius should be a great loss for the Blood Hall, right? Of course. Elder Hua nodded and smiled. He naturally understood what Qin Feiyang and the Madman meant. They wanted to kill Jiang Feiyu while he was still in the cradle. He couldn't help but look forward to it. When Jiang Feiyu died in the hands of a lunatic, what kind of expression would the group of people from the Blood Hall show? Hearing Madman's unbridled laughter, Old High's eyes flashed with killing intent. He then glanced at Jiang Feiyu. Jiang Feiyu understood. Boom! The law of lightning roared out. In this place, only I have the right to laugh. Jiang Feiyu took a step forward. The tribulation clouds in the sky rumbled and formed a huge lightning pool. In the middle of the lightning pool, a strand of lightning energy floated. Although it looked inconspicuous, it emitted an aura that could destroy the world. This was because this was the fifth profundity of the law of lightning, thunderclap. Kneel and tremble before me. Jiang Feiyu roared. It was as if he had changed into a different person. His killing intent soared into the sky. As he waved his hand, the lightning fell at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. The one who should kneel and tremble is you. A bloody light flickered in the madman's eyes. The murderous aura that was hidden in his body was released without reservation. At this moment, he was like a demon king that had descended into the world. This was his true side. Displaying such a scene also meant that he had already developed the intention to kill. Crack. Boom. He pointed at the sky, and the lightning pool appeared one after another. It's also the fifth profundity of the law of lightning. Both their first and fifth profundities are the law of lightning. It seems that they are quite fated. Someone laughed in surprise. Boom. The two profundities collided, and the world was instantly enveloped by heavenly might. At this moment, they were like two gods of lightning. They constantly collided, causing the void to collapse and the sea to churn. The sky was filled with the power of lightning. I didn't expect that your first and fifth profundity would also be the law of lightning. However, I still have other laws. Jiang Feiyu sneered. The law of slaughter roared out, turning into tens of thousands of blood dragons that charged toward the madman. Monstrous killing intent filled the air. Don't be too surprised because there are still many things that you can't imagine. The madman cackled. His eyes seemed to be soaked in blood, as if there was a sea of corpses floating within. Boom. In the next moment, he had also activated the fourth profundity of the law of slaughter. Tens of thousands of blood dragons roared in the sky and charged toward the other party. Immediately, the void above became the battlefield of the blood dragons. 20,000 blood dragons crazily pounced toward the other party, their roars shaking the sky. Jiang Feiyu frowned and roared, sword domain. Tens of thousands of sword chi appeared, turning into a huge domain that enveloped the madman. This was the third profundity of the law of sword. Radiant sacred sword. The madman laughed. The law of light appeared, turning into a sacred sword that slashed toward the sword domain. What? The third profundity of the law of light. Jiang Feiyu was stunned. The core disciples of the Blood Hall were also very surprised. Up until now, this person had already displayed 3 laws. And the profundities weren't low. The law of lightning, the 5th profundity. The law of slaughter, the 4th profundity. The law of light, the 3rd profundity. At this moment, this person's strength didn't seem to be weaker than Jiang Feiyu. Don't worry, Feiyu also has the law of death and the law of war. I don't believe that he also has 5 laws. Someone said. That's true. I heard that this person was only at the imperishable realm when he fought with the grandson of the Deputy Alliance leader of the Wandering Cultivator Alliance. Clearly, he just broke through to half-step ruler not long ago. For such a person, mastering 3 laws is already his limit. The others also expressed their opinions. Is that really the case? Qin Feiyang glanced at the Blood Hall's side, and a trace of ridicule crept up his eyes. If they really thought of the madman that way, they wouldn't even know how they died. Moreover, the law of light was the weakest of all the laws that the madman had grasped. This was because he had comprehended the law of light in the end. However, in recent years, the madman and Qin Feiyang often got together to discuss the power of laws, including the law of light. Coupled with the 1 day, 1,000 years time array, the madman had easily comprehended the 3rd profundity, radiant sacred sword. However, the law of light wasn't the main point. The main point was the madman's law of death. One was the fourth profundity, while the other was the second. The difference was like heaven and earth. Yet, Jiang Feiyu and the Blood Hall's people were still complacent. What a joke. Not bad, 3 laws. You can be considered a moldable talent. Unfortunately, your opponent today is me. Jiang Feiyu laughed loudly. Boom. He activated the law of war, and a monstrous battle intent surged. Immediately after, he activated the law of death. A wave of death energy surged out like a giant wave and rushed toward Madman. Yes. You can be considered a moldable talent. Unfortunately, you met me. In terms of talent, you're not even 1/10 of me. What are you being so arrogant for? The madman shouted. The law of war and law of death were instantly activated. What? Jiang Feiyu froze on the spot. The Blood Hall's people, Treasury Elder Hai and the head deacon also had a look of disbelief. Even the core disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, Sky Hall, Deity Hall, and Devil Hall were dumbfounded as they looked at the madman. This person had actually grasped the law of war and law of death. What was going on? They had never heard of such a situation before. There were no less than 400 to 500 people present. Among so many people, only Qin Feiyang, Elder Hua, Chu Yun, Black Dragon, Fire Dragon, and Fire Luan were relatively calm. Because they all knew. As for the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they only knew about the madman's other identity, Mo Wuhui. Interesting, even the little rabbit perked up and watched the madman's battle. Boom! The two powers of death collided and Jiang Feiyu's power of death was annihilated on the spot. Then, the madman's power of death did not stop and continued to attack Jiang Feiyu. After all, their levels were different. The madman had already comprehended the fourth profundity, while Jiang Feiyu had only comprehended the second profundity. The power of the madman's power of death was naturally stronger than Jiang Feiyu's. This is impossible, Jiang Feiyu shook his head. He seemed to have suffered a huge blow and did not even notice the power of death that was heading towards him. It was not hard to imagine. A person who was so arrogant, conceited, and complacent, who had regarded his opponent as an ant, only to suddenly discover that this ant was actually not inferior to him. This kind of feeling of disparity and defeat would be especially intense. Feiyu, watch out! Someone from the Blood Hall shouted. Jiang Feiyu shuddered and suddenly came back to his senses. Looking at the power of death that was already in front of him, he immediately broke out in cold sweat. Without hesitation, he activated the thunder armor. Boom! The power of death struck his body. Although he was protected by the thunder armor and the law of war, he was still sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. His power of death can actually crush Jiang Feiyu's power of death. Could it be that his comprehension of the law of death is higher than Jiang Feiyu's? Finally, someone realized the important point. As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked and looked at the madman in surprise. Especially the people from the Blood Hall. The madman's power of death could crush Jiang Feiyu's power of death. It was obviously higher than Jiang Feiyu's. The situation was not good. Chapter 32-31. Impossible, this must be a dream. How can there be someone in the current generation who has comprehended the law of death like me, and has comprehended a higher level of profundity than me? I don't believe it, Jiang Feiyu stared at the madman, his eyes turning red. To him, this was a fatal blow. However, this blow did not come from his body, but from his mind and soul. The reason why he could look down on the current generation was because he had mastered the law of death, but he never thought that there would be someone more outstanding than him. It was as if he had fallen from the clouds into a bottomless abyss. Now you know how ridiculous you are. The madman mocked mercilessly. Jiang Feiyu clenched his fists tightly, his nails digging into the flesh of his palms, and drops of blood flowed out from between his fingers. In this world, there are many people who are stronger and more talented than you. What right do you have to be so arrogant? Today, I will teach you a lesson. You must know how to keep a low profile, because you will never know how unfathomable your opponent is. The madman took a step forward, and the law of thunder, law of slaughter, law of death, law of light, and law of war were all activated. The only one that was not activated was the law of darkness. The power of the 5 laws turned into 5 giant dragons, roaring in the sky as they charged at Jiang Feiyu. Bastard, I will kill you. Jiang Feiyu was extremely ashamed and angry. With a roar, he also activated the 5 laws and pounced over like 5 giant pythons. Boom! In just an instant, the power of their laws collided with each other. The void here suddenly rumbled as the power of laws clashed all over the sky. In the end, Jiang Feiyu was still no match, and the giant pythons formed by the 5 laws were annihilated. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood and roared, "You want to kill me? It's not that easy." Clang! Accompanied by a loud sound, a dazzling divine light appeared in front of him. It was a black longsword. Legendary grade heaven-defying artifact. Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted. The rules say that except for the sovereign grade weapon, all means can be used. Of course, heaven-defying artifacts are included. Die! Jiang Feiyu smiled sinisterly, and the black longsword instantly recovered. It carried a sharp edge that could destroy the world as it slashed at the madman. Looks like my identity is about to be exposed. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Since Jiang Feiyu had taken out a legendary divine artifact, the lunatic had to take out his divine artifact as well. If the power of law could be said to be a coincidence, then the divine artifact could not be explained. This was because the lunatic's legendary artifacts were all given to him by the Hall of Famers. As long as he took them out, he would be able to recognize them at a glance. You can't win with the power of law, so you're using a heaven-defying divine artifact? Haha, today, I'll teach you a bloody lesson. Whether it's the power of law or the heaven-defying divine artifact, you're no match for me. The madman smiled proudly, and with a wave of his hand, a 3-foot-long sword that was as white as jade appeared. The thin sword was only 2 fingers wide and as thin as a cicada's wing. It looked as if it was made of jade, and there was a white phoenix engraved on the sword hilt. When the thin sword appeared, Elder Huo was slightly stunned. Meanwhile, Qin Feiyang immediately looked at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers. However, to his surprise, after seeing the thin sword that the lunatic took out, their pupils shrank slightly, but they did not show any expression of shock. What's going on? You didn't recognize it? Qin Feiyang was a little dumbfounded. But how was this possible? The divine artifact was given to the lunatic by the Hall of Famers. As the original owner, how could he not recognize it? Feiyu, be careful. That's a supreme divine artifact. Suddenly, a cry of surprise sounded. What? Supreme-level heaven-defying divine artifact. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked over and saw that the person who exclaimed was the Blood Hall's Grand Deacon. Since the Grand Deacon said it, it must be true. However, wasn't the divine artifact given to the lunatic by the Hall of Famers a legendary divine artifact? How did it become a supreme divine artifact? Supreme divine artifact. Jiang Feiyu, who was charging towards the lunatic, heard this and his body trembled. He quickly stopped. But at the same time, the lunatic laughed and grabbed the thin sword. He instantly recovered and slashed at the black sword. Accompanied by a loud clang, the black sword broke on the spot. What's going on? Qin Feiyang looked at this scene in astonishment. Could it be that the lunatic was hiding something from him? Could it be that the Hall of Famers gave him a supreme divine artifact? However, how could he explain the Hall of Famers' reaction? Why is the White Phoenix divine sword in his hands? Suddenly, a voice was transmitted to Qin Feiyang's ears. White Phoenix divine sword. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He quickly turned to look at Elder Hua because the person who was muttering to himself was Elder Hua. That's right. This sword is called the White Phoenix Divine Sword. It's a supreme divine artifact. However, this is a gift I gave to Fire Lotus. How did it end up in the hands of the lunatic? Elder Hua frowned. What? You gave this to Fire Lotus? Qin Feiyang looked at him in astonishment. That's right. She's my disciple now. Naturally, I have to give her a divine artifact to protect herself. Is there a problem? Elder Hua asked. No problem. Qin Feiyang hurriedly shook his head. So that's how it is. When the lunatic first entered the Black Tortoise world, he must have found out that Elder Hua gave the Fire Lotus a supreme divine artifact. Out of greed, he tricked the Fire Lotus into giving it to him. Awesome. Elder Hua was really generous with his supreme-grade heaven-defying artifact. The demonic hall's foundation was indeed stronger than the rogue cultivator alliances. No wonder the Hall of Famers didn't have any reaction. It turned out that this wasn't the divine artifact he gave to the lunatic. As for Qin Feiyang himself, the Hall of Famers gave the lunatic 2 divine artifacts. Qin Feiyang had seen the armor before. However, Qin Feiyang didn't know what the weapon was. Therefore, when he saw the White Phoenix divine sword, he naturally thought that it was the weapon the Hall of Famers gave him. It's broken just like that. Jiang Feiyu looked at the black longsword in his hand. His face was filled with shock. Not only was the power of law stronger than his, but even the supreme divine artifact was stronger than his. Suddenly, he raised his head and stared at the lunatic. He roared in exasperation, "You actually used a supreme divine artifact. You're too despicable." Despicable? The lunatic's mouth twitched. You're allowed to use a supreme divine artifact, but others aren't allowed to use it. Before I took out the White Phoenix divine sword, you were already so fierce. Now that I took out an even stronger supreme divine artifact, you're saying I'm despicable. What kind of fucking logic is this? When the people of the various factions heard Jiang Feiyu's words, they couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. Although his talent was good, his mind was still immature. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such a childish thing. In comparison, this lunatic was more outstanding. Whether it was talent or mentality, Jiang Feiyu couldn't compare to him. This was the difference between growing up in a greenhouse and growing up in the outside world through countless tribulations. Although the flowers in the greenhouse were beautiful, they couldn't withstand the ravages of wind and frost. Old Hai, Grand Deacon, quickly save Feiyu. A young man stood out and anxiously called out to Old Hai and Grand Deacon. Old Hai and Grand Deacon looked at each other and couldn't help but glance at the little rabbit on Sky Cloud Island. If we don't save Feiyu, he'll die. The young man was burning with anxiety. Battlefield. The White Phoenix divine sword in the lunatic's hand had already recovered to its peak state. The leaders of the various factions all activated their power of law and condensed barriers to protect their respective islands. On the other side, Jiang Feiyu's face was already pale as he stood there trembling. It was obvious that he was in despair. You're scared already? Bring out the arrogance that you had at the beginning. The lunatic looked at him with contempt. No, don't kill me, I beg you, let me go. Jiang Feiyu murmured. In the end, he knelt in the void powerlessly. He's kneeling. Where's his dignity? He's still a core disciple of the Blood Hall. The various factions couldn't help but look at Jiang Feiyu in shock. It was just as Madman Mo said, he had nothing but talent. Even Old Hai and Grand Deacon couldn't help but frown. Not only had he lost this battle, but he had also humiliated the Blood Hall. The dignified number 1 core disciple of the Blood Hall actually knelt and begged for mercy. When the exchange conference ended, this matter would definitely become a joke in the 4 continents. Feiyu, what are you doing? Stand up for me. The young man who had asked Old High and Grand Deacon for help looked at Jiang Feiyu angrily and roared. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man suspiciously. This person seemed to be particularly concerned about Jiang Feiyu. Could it be that they were related? However, Jiang Feiyu turned a deaf ear to him. Like a pitiful worm, he looked at the lunatic helplessly. Even if you die, you have to die with dignity. The young man roared again. However, Jiang Feiyu still ignored him. He looked at the lunatic and said, I beg you, let me go. Just treat me as a dog, what kind of mentality is this? In order to survive, he can even say such words. It seems that our core disciples have to be sharpened in the future, lest they make such a shameful scene. The leaders of the various factions shook their heads. The lunatic looked at Jiang Feiyu with a trace of pity in his eyes. This person was indeed a talent. Unfortunately, he was born in a greenhouse and didn't have any ability to resist pressure. He didn't even have the most basic courage. Old Dog High, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves. Such a good seed was actually raised like this by you. This is the biggest joke in the world. The lunatic looked at Old High and mocked him mercilessly. Then he waved the white phoenix divine sword. Feiyu, pull yourself together. This is my supreme grade heaven-defying artifact. Quickly catch it. Believe in yourself, you can do it. Seeing this, the young man immediately took out a flaming long blade and threw it at Jiang Feiyu. When Jiang Feiyu heard this, a trace of hope appeared in his dim eyes. Then he leaped and grabbed the flaming long blade. Chapter 32-32. Madman raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang, Elder Hua, Chu Yun, and the 100 or so disciples of the Demon Hall all revealed angry expressions. Didn't they say that no one was allowed to interfere in the battle of life and death? It seems that you really don't care about Uncle Rabbit. At this moment, a bone-chilling voice sounded. The little rabbit held the wine jar and suddenly stood up. With a step, it instantly appeared in front of the flaming saber and grabbed it. Give it to me. Seeing this, Jiang Feiyu roared with red eyes. This was his only life-saving straw. Scram! The little rabbit roared and its voice turned into a sound wave that directly blasted Jiang Feiyu away. His body was torn into pieces. This was undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire for Jiang Feiyu. Because he was already seriously injured before, and now he was blasted away by the little rabbit. Although it was only a sound wave, its lethality was no weaker than a heaven-defying divine artifact. You still want to jump around? Go to hell. At the same time, Madman also charged over with the White Phoenix Divine Sword. The White Phoenix Divine Sword shone brightly. When the sword fell, accompanied by a shrill scream, Jiang Feiyu's soul was annihilated on the spot. Feiyu, the young man roared with pain and despair in his eyes. The others of the Blood Hall also stared at Madman with gloomy faces. As for the people of the other forces, they couldn't help but shake their heads in pity. Jiang Feiyu was really a talent. Unfortunately, as Madman said, he was delayed by the Blood Hall. Otherwise, he would definitely become an overlord of the Sky Cloud realm in the future. What a pity. And this lesson also told them that the more talented a disciple was, the more they couldn't be nurtured in a greenhouse. Because their future path was longer than others, they needed to be sent out to temper themselves. There was a saying that a jade wouldn't become a treasure if it wasn't polished. No matter how good a jade was, if it wasn't polished, it wouldn't be able to reflect its value. Everyone was regretting Jiang Feiyu's death, but the little rabbit stared at the young man with murderous intent in its eyes. The Grand Deacon was the first to react. He hurriedly stood in front of the young man and looked at the little rabbit with some respect. Please show mercy. Rules are rules. The little rabbit was expressionless. Immediately, everyone looked at Little Rabbit and Bloodhole. Apart from Qin Feiyang, everyone else revealed a look of schadenfreude. The disciples below didn't know the little rabbit's identity, but the various big shots were very clear in their hearts. Don't look at how cute the little rabbit was. In reality, it was an extremely terrifying existence. Furthermore, it was still the referee. As a referee, he had to do things impartially. Moreover, it wasn't afraid of offending anyone. Even if it was a core disciple of the Blood Hall, it wouldn't care if it killed him. Who? Old Hai took a deep breath and looked at the little rabbit. I guarantee that there won't be a next time. Then, he looked at the young man and shouted, Jiang Feitian, apologize to it immediately. Jiang Feitian? Jiang Feiyu? This name, so they are brothers. No wonder you care so much about him. Qin Feiyang nodded. Since they were blood-related brothers, it was likely that things were not over yet. Jiang Feitian kept looking at the place where Jiang Feiyu died, as if he didn't hear Old Hai's voice. His eyes were filled with sorrow and hatred. Jiang Feitian. The Grand Deacon also shouted. Only then did Jiang Feitian retract his gaze. He glanced gloomily at Frenzy and looked at the little rabbit. I didn't intervene in their battle. I only gave my brother a divine artifact. Is that considered breaking the rules? Still quibbling. The little rabbit clenched its paw and the supreme-level divine artifact, the flaming saber, was directly crushed into pieces. What a waste! That's a supreme-level divine artifact. Seeing this scene, countless people felt their hearts ache. A supreme-level divine artifact was the strongest existence below a sovereign-level divine artifact. Just like the Rogue Cultivators Alliance, even the Deputy Alliance Leader and Hall of Famers couldn't take out a second supreme-level divine artifact. But now, this little rabbit actually destroyed a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact without a second word. That's right. It was destroyed, not damaged. It could be repaired if it was damaged, but if it was destroyed, it would be completely gone. Ahem. Frenzy coughed dryly and came to the little rabbit's side. He said with a bitter face, Uncle Rabbit, you can give it to me if you don't want it. Doesn't Jiang Feiyu have a legendary-level divine artifact? The little rabbit said without turning its head. That's right. Frenzy slapped his head and then said in distress, how can a legendary-level divine artifact be better than a supreme-level divine artifact? Hearing this, the little rabbit raised its eyebrows. It clawed at the air, and the broken black sword that fell into the sea below instantly flew in front of it like lightning. You don't want it, right? Fine, I'll just destroy it. The little rabbit bared its teeth. Don't. Frenzy hurriedly waved his hand and ran over with a flattering smile. Uncle Rabbit, please have mercy. The little rabbit rolled its eyes at him and threw the broken black sword to Frenzy. Thank you, Uncle Rabbit. Frenzy smiled and sized up the black sword. He found that there was a demonic dragon engraved on the sword. This sword was about 3 feet long and 3 fingers wide. The blade emitted a faint light. When Frenzy dripped his blood to recognize it as its master, a message immediately entered his head. Legendary-level divine artifact, Demon Dragon Sword. It's not bad. Frenzy nodded and threw the black sword to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang caught it and directly sent it to the Black Tortoise world. The Demon Dragon Sword also had a spirit, but he didn't dare to be presumptuous now. A little rabbit was enough to intimidate him, not to mention Elder Hua and Chu Yun. If it was chased away, Qin Feiyang and Frenzy would definitely not hesitate to let Elder Hua destroy it. However, As long as it entered the black tortoise world, there was no need to be afraid of it running away. Frenzy glanced at Jiang Feitian and asked in a low voice, "Uncle Rabbit, what do you plan to do with him?" "Do it according to the rules." "Die." The little rabbit said coldly. It looked at Elder Hai and the head deacon and said, "Do you want to do it, or do you want Uncle Rabbit to do it myself?" Frenzy immediately looked at the two of them playfully. The head deacon frowned and looked at the little rabbit apologetically. "I'm really sorry this time. Please give him another chance. After all, Jiang Feiyu is his biological brother. It's understandable that he was impulsive." "Understandable?" Frenzy laughed and coldly snorted. "Ask the people here, who doesn't have a few friends. If they were all like him, would the rules still be the rules? They're not friends, they're brothers." The head deacon said in a deep voice. "So what if they're brothers? Look at me and old Qin. Although we're not brothers, we're closer than brothers. According to what you said, when the two of us are fighting, the other can also run over to help." Frenzy sneered. "Madman Mo, if you have the guts, don't hide behind it. Come out and fight with me." Jiang Feitian glared at Frenzy and roared. "We're all about to die. Do I need to waste time with you?" Frenzy looked down on him. "You," Jiang Feitian spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with anger. "Ouch! You're spitting out blood. Your body is too weak. Why didn't you rest at home? Why did you come here to join in the fun?" Frenzy looked at him with a concerned look. "I'll kill you." Jiang Feitian roared. "Shut up." The head deacon coldly shouted and grabbed Jiang Feitian, directly pressing him down to kneel on the ground. Then, the head deacon looked at Little Rabbit and said in a deep voice, "He's already kneeling. Can't you give him a chance? Uncle Rabbit, don't be soft-hearted. Kneeling down will be enough. If you continue to say that, you'll have to kowtow a few times and call him ancestor before you forgive him." Frenzy laughed sinisterly. "This kid isn't honest. He's just thinking of humiliating others." The people from various forces shook their heads. This guy was definitely worthy of the word shameless. "Frenzy, don't go too far." The head deacon stared at Frenzy with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. "Too far?" Frenzy laughed and shook his head. "I really don't know. How can you still have the face to say that I'm too far? Who was it that chased after me and old Qin, and even used the three rulers' divine weapons multiple times? And who was it that used despicable means to force us to participate in the conference?" The head deacon fell silent. "You have nothing to say now. The Great Blood Hall spent so much effort to deal with me and old Qin. They really think highly of us. Didn't you want to kill us? You should have brought the ruler's divine weapons with you, right? Heavenly Dragon God Sword, Ice Dragon Sacred Sword, you two bastards, get out here. Let's settle the old and new grudges today." Frenzy shouted without fear in his eyes. Heavenly Dragon God Sword. Ice Dragon Sacred Sword. Those are the names of the two rulers' divine weapons. The eyes of the leaders of various forces couldn't help but flicker. It seemed that Madman Mo and Qin Feiyang already had a deep grudge against the two rulers' divine weapons. But where did these two rulers' divine weapons come from? Why had they never heard of them before? Old Hai, the head deacon, and the Blood Hall's core disciples all had gloomy expressions in the face of Frenzy's clamor. Because this was a blatant challenge to him. "You don't dare to come out? Huh, it seems that you're just two cowards. But then again, when we were still half-step undying, you were almost destroyed by our hands, let alone now. Don't you think you're pitiful? You didn't do anything yourself, yet you went to borrow the Blood Hall's hand. The Blood Hall's people are so stupid that they're cute. They're actually willing to be used by you." Frenzy sneered as if there was no one else around. He was completely unrestrained. "Bastard, I want to challenge you." "Me too." If you have the guts, fight me. I guarantee that you'll regret provoking our blood hall. Don't be a coward. You're so arrogant. Even the ruler's divine weapon isn't your match. You think you're afraid of us low-level rulers? The blood hall's core disciples couldn't help but run out to fight. Idiot. Frenzy rolled his eyes at them, infuriating them. Chapter 32-33. However, the powerhouses of the various forces found it hard to calm down. Although Qin Feiyang's battle with the three Dominator divine weapons in the Sky Cloud Sea, other than Elder Hua and a few others, no one knew about it. But back then in the Wind Sea City, the Sky Dragon God's Sword and Ice Dragon Sacred Sword came, and Qin Feiyang fought with them in the Star River. This was the best proof. It proved that these people indeed had the ability to fight against the Dominator divine weapon. Therefore, all the powerhouses believed what Madman had said before. And this was inconceivable. Almost destroying two Dominator divine weapons, such a shocking feat was impossible even for them, the overlords of a region. How did these two brats do it? Moreover, a battle with a Dominator divine weapon would definitely cause a huge commotion. But why had they never heard of a battle between Dominator divine weapons all these years? Where exactly did Qin Feiyang and Madman come from? They were still so young, yet they already had a Dominator divine weapon. Could it be that there was still a hidden place in the Sky Cloud realm that the world did not know about? You damn madman, don't blindly argue. That's right, if you have the guts, fight us one-on-one. If I lose, I will kneel in front of you and call you grandfather in front of everyone. The core disciples of the Demon Palace were furious. They had never seen such a bastard. Don't. I don't have unfilial grandsons like you. Madman quickly waved his hand with a look of disdain. Bastard, I'm going to tear you apart. A young man beat his chest and stomped his feet as he roared. Even tearing your grandfather apart, you are indeed unfilial. Madman shook his head and sighed. Puff. The young man was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Huh, are all of you from the Blood Palace weak? Sigh, didn't grandfather often warn you not to be greedy for beauties? Don't be greedy for beauties. You just don't listen. Look, now the after effects are coming out. Madman's face was full of ridicule. The group of people gnashed their teeth, wishing that they could pull out Madman's tendons and skin him alive. All of you, shut up. The Grand Deacon couldn't stand it anymore. There were so many people here, but they were being played around by a little lunatic. Wasn't that embarrassing? The group of people fell silent, but their eyes were filled with anger as they looked at the madman. The Great Deacon looked at the little rabbit and cupped his hands, saying, "Give me a chance. I guarantee that he won't do it again. Otherwise, there's no need for you to do anything. I'll personally kill him in front of everyone." The little rabbit looked at Jiang Feiqian. After a moment of silence, she nodded and said, "All right, but as the little lunatic said, you have to kowtow and apologize." The Grand Deacon clenched his fists and looked down at Jiang Feiqian. Kowtow and apologize. Great Deacon, Jiang Feiqian looked up at the Grand Deacon. I don't want to repeat myself. The Grand Deacon's gaze was gloomy. Jiang Feiqian gritted his teeth and kowtowed 3 times. I'm sorry. That's more like it. The little rabbit sneered and returned to Sky Cloud Island with the jug in her hand. She said indifferently, "Let's continue." Jiang Feiqian immediately stood up and looked at Madman aggressively. He shouted, "Do you dare to fight to the death?" Madman also put away the smile on his face and looked at Jiang Feiqian. Elder Hua saw this and hurriedly sent a voice transmission, "Little lunatic, don't be rash. He's a lesser stage ruler and has grasped 3/5 intents." Chu Yun couldn't help but frown. On the other hand, Qin Feiyang looked at Madman with a pensive expression. He understood Madman's personality. He wouldn't do something he wasn't confident in. But now, facing Jiang Feitian, Madman actually had a feeling of eagerness. What was this fellow planning? I'm asking you, do you dare? Jiang Feitian roared. The aura of a lesser stage ruler erupted without any concealment. He was furious to the extreme. His younger brother's blood feud and all the humiliation today, he was going to return it all to Madman. 10 times, 100 times. If you don't accept his challenge, I'll kill the Sword Emperor right now. Elder Hai's voice suddenly sounded in Madman's mind. Shut up. Madman immediately looked at Elder Hai like an enraged lion and roared, apart from threatening us, what else can you do? Do you want me to stand here and let you kill me? What do you mean? Threaten? Everyone was baffled by the madman's sudden outburst. But Qin Feiyang knew that Elder Hai must be secretly threatening Madman again. That damned old thing, he would make him pay the price sooner or later. Elder Hai's face sank when facing the gazes of various forces. Madman took a deep breath and looked at Elder Hai, old bastard, I can accept his challenge, but the premise is that you let the Sword Emperor and the others come out and let me take a look. Elder Hai was silent. If he really called the Sword Emperor and the others out, it would be tantamount to admitting that he was secretly threatening Qin Feiyang and Elder Hai. Although this was their personal grudge and the various forces wouldn't get involved, once this matter was confirmed, everyone would definitely point fingers at him behind his back. In the end, when this matter was spread out, the entire Sky Cloud realm would point fingers at the Blood Hall behind their backs. At this time, Qin Feiyang said, who in the Sky Cloud realm doesn't know about your Blood Hall's conduct, so you don't need to worry about being talked about. Elder Hai gloomily looked at Qin Feiyang. Old man Hai, if you really want to use the Sword Emperor and the others to make Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo stand here and let you kill them, then my demon palace will sit by and watch. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth, this old man has also brought the sovereign divine weapon of my demon palace. If you want to fight, then this old man will accompany you to the end. Elder Hua spoke, his tone revealing a shocking sharpness. Hearing this, the hearts of the various forces trembled. Accompany you to the end, it seems like the demon palace is determined to protect these two. That's right. Since this exchange is organized by your Blood Hall, then let's settle it in a fair and just way. Why don't we make a bet? Let's use the freedom of the Sword Emperor and the others as the wager. If my demon palace wins this exchange, then return the Sword Emperor and the others to Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. If my demon palace loses to you in this exchange, then my demon palace will never interfere in the enmity between you and Qin Feiyang and the others. Chu Yun spoke as well, and this could be considered as an official declaration of war. Qin Feiyang was extremely moved when he heard this, and he turned to look at Elder Hua and the others before bowing and saying, "Thank you." Elder Hua waved his hand, and then he looked at Elder Hai and said, "Now that we've spoken so clearly, there shouldn't be any need to continue hiding, right? Call the Sword Emperor and the others out." Elder Hai glanced gloomily at Elder Hua and the others, and then he glanced at Qin Feiyang and the madman before he nodded and said, "All right. Since we've already embarrassed ourselves to this extent, I'm not afraid of you mocking us." As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Hai waved his hand, and then a bloody figure instantly appeared at the side. That's right. He was the Sword Emperor. However, at this moment, he was covered in wounds and extremely weak, and even standing there was wobbling. His former elegance was long gone. The current him was like an old man at the end of his life. Moreover, he was wearing a bracelet made of soul-sealing magic stone on both of his hands. Bastard. He's just a greater success imperishable realm cultivator. Moreover, his Qi has already been destroyed by you, and he's wearing a bracelet made of soul-sealing magic stone. He no longer has the strength to fight back, and you're still torturing him like this? The madman Qin Feiyang looked at the Sword Emperor's current appearance, and they instantly bared their teeth in anger, almost going crazy with hatred. Wait. Isn't he the person in the portrait? So these portraits were used to threaten Qin Feiyang and the others. When the core disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace saw the Sword Emperor, they immediately understood what was going on. This was because they were all from the Eastern continent, and they knew about the appearance of the portraits. At first, they were all baffled. Why would these portraits appear? Some even thought that it was purely a prank. Only now did they come to a realization. The portraits were spread by the Blood Palace. The purpose was to force Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo to participate in the exchange conference. This method was really despicable. As for the people of the Sky Palace and the Divine Palace, after hearing the discussion here, they could roughly guess some of it, and they couldn't help but show disdain for the Blood Palace. The dignified Blood Palace, the overlord of the Western continent, actually used such a despicable method? However, the actions of the Blood Palace also reflected another thing. Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo were not ordinarily difficult to deal with. Otherwise, with the strength of the Blood Palace, they would never do such a thing. In other words, the Blood Palace would do such a thing because they really had no other choice. The giants of the Sky Palace and the Divine Palace were also more and more interested in Qin Feiyang and the Madman. To be able to force the Blood Palace to this extent, one could imagine their ability. The Sword Emperor. When he first appeared, he looked a little confused. Where was this? Why were there so many people? But when the Madman and Qin Feiyang's angry roars rang out, his expression froze. Why were there Feiyang and the little madman's voices? Was this a dream? He couldn't believe it. He didn't even dare to look up, because he was afraid that when he looked up, he would find that everything was just his illusion. Looking at the Sword Emperor at this moment, Qin Feiyang and the madman felt heartache, and the anger in their hearts became more and more uncontrollable. Thinking back to when they were in the Divine Land, the Sword Emperor was such a high-spirited man. Even when facing the dragons, he never retreated, but at this moment, he became timid, completely like a timid child. It was hard to imagine what kind of life he had lived all these years, and how much torture he had experienced. Senior Sword Emperor, Qin Feiyang walked to the madman's side step by step and called out softly, as if he was afraid of scaring the Sword Emperor. What exactly did he experience to make a person with a strong fighting spirit become like this? Is it darkness? Darkness that can't see any light? Or despair? I can't find the slightest bit of hope. All that's left is despair, even the right to die has been ruthlessly taken away. The madman clenched his hands, and the anger in his heart burned crazily. He suddenly roared, "Ice Dragon, you bastard, I swear that if I don't kill you in this life, I won't be human in the next life." His words were sad and angry, except for when he learned of his foster father's death. He had never wanted to kill a person like this. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.